My people, Michigan people, interested Michigan people. It's the My People Podcast Show.
All right, welcome to the My People Podcast. I'm here with a local restaurant manager, one of the bigger restaurants in Ann Arbor, a Chelsea native, interesting guy. Every time I hang out with him, it seems like we're kind of rushing to talk about all kinds of stuff. So I got him on the podcast. I am here with Travis Terns.
Hi, thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Thanks for making the drive and coming out, man.
No problem.
So you grew up in Chelsea.
Mm-hmm.
I met you through my now brother-in-law, Scott.
Yep.
We had a great bachelor party. My first time in Austin.
Yeah.
Which you kind of set up most of that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. But it was a great way to break the ice as far as you and I and like getting
Right.
to know each other and just, having a couple days in a row to kind of communicate and see where we're at each other.
Yeah. That was a good group of dudes down there for sure. That was fun.
Yeah.
Got to go to the mothership.
All the more brother-in-laws are good, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's kind of like, you get into brother-in-law, but then you also kind of meeting their friends and, I mean, bachelor parties are always, and I always like bachelor parties like that too. Like, I've been to a couple where there's the traditional going to a place where ladies get naked and stuff, but I feel like when it's just about the curated group and it's, something like that, it's so much more fun.
When it's like not in a specific place or not in a specific time, we have more time to just kind of like make it ours and be creative and like do what we want to do as opposed to just follow a script. And that's just a lot more fun. It's a lot more personal.
Right. And when you're together on a trip like that, it's like you're BSing all on the couch, laughing or around the kitchen island and then getting dinner together. What I'm saying, there's so much more time for like getting to know each other and things versus like we're going to go to this loud bar and then we're going to go to this loud club. And then,
Just getting ready and getting dressed is half the fun, just having a couple beers before you go out. I mean, that's just like going camp and setting up is the best part,
Yeah, it was a great time. I have a plan of going back at least for like a random weekend just to dip in for some barbecue and a comedy show.
Yeah, that Terry Black's barbecue, that was pretty well, and I have dreams about that.
Oh my gosh. I still taste it. Like I don't know if it was just I know it was the food, but sometimes your mind plays trick on you. There's been times when I've been on the trail and I eat something and I think like, oh, this is amazing. But it's because I was starving and I was in the backwoods. But I keep thinking like, was I like really hungry? Was that line really long? What made it so special?
The line was long and it was worth it. That's kind of what
like, this food really that good? Because I remember sitting there just like my eyes rolling in my head like, oh my gosh, and like looking around and everybody just like eyes wide, like making eye contact with everybody. I was like, what?
Yep. I told myself when I went in there I was only eating meat. There was no vegetables or anything involved. It was just the meat.
Who was it that was like a vegetarian was like, well, I'm hanging it up today?
Oh, yeah. Hava. Chris, Hava, one of our good buddies from Chelsea.
Yeah, he got after it.
It was like his first time eating meat in like a year and a half, and he was just in love with it.
Yeah, he was a good guy, too. His parents are like the sweetest. But, the wedding was a great time, too, and
yeah, I mean, that was the whole part of it, too, just us having to know each other and get to know each other beforehand made the wedding all that much better. And, I mean, I've been to weddings where it's like you go there and, like, 2 hours later, everybody's like, all right, well, see ya, like, we're going home.
Right.
And then I've been there where it's like 10, 11, 12, and we're all getting kicked out of the facility. And so,
going somewhere else. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, we went back to the hotel and still hung out afterwards, and that was a good time, man. So, like, last couple times I've talked to you, we've dove, I feel like this podcast is very AI heavy. But it probably should be. It's 2026.
Oh yeah.
We've talked about that. And you're doing something. I'm very heavy into marketing, video, and things like that. But you've been using it for unique like physics and stuff. Like you're getting, which have no experience with even thinking about.
Well, just what I realized, I mean, in the AI aspect is that, I can spend a week researching something via Google search, right? But if I do it in AI, it's literally, a 30-second, just type it in, gives me some ideas, literally have it like say it to me so I can be doing something else at the same time. I'm constantly multitasking. I'll be reading a book on physics, quantum physics, and then listening to a podcast on atomic physics. And it's just, just trying to bring all the points together. But AI really, really helps you do that. It's one of those things in life, like anything. I mean, porn is a good example where you can just kind of like take advantage of it and it can become a bad thing, but the AI, if you use it properly, that will get you the best tool, right? I mean, any tool, if it's misused, is not a great tool, but if it's used for the right thing, you can get really far.
Could you elaborate more on how to use porn properly?
Well, if you've never done this before, Mike, what you do is you...
So I was actually talking with my buddies last night, my buddy Shane and his cousin Mikey about because like, I don't know how to use it. I'm driving. I can't use it when I'm driving. And I was like, no, that's the best time.
To use it. Yeah.
Because my system is kind of like I use ChatGPT for kind of like organized stuff. So I have my projects and I try to keep it clean. Like, so most of my chats are kind of like chats I return to. Yeah. That so there's not just like kind of garbage, random idea question chats, but then like Grok and a little bit of Google, it's more of chatting or just random stuff, random questions or whatever. But I'll sit there in the car the whole ride to work trying to learn something like coding or whatever. And what does it mean when you do that? So if I wanted to do that, and I even had this new trick recently. I said, tell me a story using these vocabulary words so I can drive them in my head and use these words and tell me the story so I can like better understand how to use them in context. And
just kind of in the physics context, I'll ask it to tell me something about something specific. It'll use all the scientific terms and jargon, and then it'll be like, say it to me in a layman's terms using different terminology, like pick out the key terms and say it's something different. And then they'll use different terms, and then all of a sudden I'm like, oh my God, that means that's relative to this, and this is how they got through, electron theory versus quantum, versus this, and it'll all tie it together. And like that's just a big thing. I think this limited, or what are they called, LLMs models, like that's the whole point of this, is to kind of like draw the language back to like one conversation across the board of like millions of people, as opposed to just you in your head or you in the laboratory with a group of people all using the same terminology, and then you go to another laboratory and nobody knows what you're talking about. Right. And we're all working on the same thing. We're all looking at the same reality.
Is that what you find in that field, is like kind of terms are different and not unified because it's such an isolated niche?
And if you have the idea that in this terminology means slightly different than the other person thinks that same term means something slightly different, that could be literally a whole 2-hour podcast trying to get to the bottom of that singular term. And then the two parties realizing that they've been arguing about the same topic the whole time, and that they both actually agree. They're just using different terms.
Wow.
It's kind of crazy. And
like the terms mean the opposite or something adjacent, where they're like arguing what they
back in like Plato and Aristotle and Socrates, they were talking about the ether, but Einstein in general relativity refers to it as the space-time metric. It's the same thing. And it just how the equations apply to it based on the mind that's interpreting it. And it's all, you could literally,
So like, I've studied a little bit of like electronics theory, which is called theory for a reason. We don't really understand electrons flow. And I remember that being a hard thing of just understanding, looking at a schematic and thinking about how this is flowing and things.
Well, even the new theory is that electrons aren't a thing and they don't exist, and that we've been wrong this whole time, and it's just a probability field, and that there's no actual electron. Right. And then you start to see that there's certain patterns that these fields produce. Right. And you can't pinpoint the electron. We say that because as soon as you measure it, it's somewhere else. And then that kind of fits all together.
So we have an abstract theory like, capacitor, the electrons build onto the plate and discharge, but it's just a theory of like what we think is happening on this molecular level. Right. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. And each level is different with its own terms. Right. You go from nuclear to atomic to quantum, but we're all talking about the same line, the same singular energy source that goes from like the beginning of the Big Bang to where we're at now, right?
Wow.
Yeah. And they're just different sizes, if you will, but that's not even it. That's a part of it, but it's just different level, different strata, different layers to the whole picture.
So is your interest in like kind of just understanding this kind of like mystery? So it's like taking you into electronics theory and taking you into different things. And
what I realized was that this is just like a personal passion of mine. So I was just jumping all over the board. And what most scientists find like one theory, one avenue, and they delve into that their whole life. And like we were just talking about, if you just learn 95 before the podcast, if you just focus on 95% of it, you can pick up a big, chunk of it and then go on to the next one, get 95% of it, and you see how those two relate to each other instead of spending your entire life trying to find out the last 5%. And then you just got this one field, this one understanding, and you never looked at the big picture. You never stepped back for a second. And then so for me, just taking my layman, mind and just, it's a hobby of mine, looking at all the theories together and trying to piece it together into one underlying concept. And don't necessarily understand the math to it. I do get math, and I can read the equations and understand what they're deriving from the equations, but that's not necessarily it. It's just kind of understanding the theories and trying to get to the bottom of it. So
I remember I had to take a certified electronics technician test, to get my CET certificate, and I was following along with a lot of the stuff, and a lot of what I do is just troubleshooting. You can troubleshoot anything. It's just kind of the same pattern of
reverse engineering.
Yeah. But I had to pass the thing about inductance and learn the formulas for that. So not just Ohm's law and like the basics, but then the impedance and things like that. And that's where I got lost. It's like, like just the math in that and wrapping your head around the whole plus it's something I would never use. I had no experience with it at all. So I'm looking at it and my brain hurts. It's like I shut off when I was trying to study it. And
Unless you're sitting in that laboratory, you're not really using any of this.
Right.
But it's all.
I feel like you got to work your way. You got to work your muscles up to that. It's not something you can be like, all right, now that we taught you Ohm's law, we're going to go just like,
correct.
It's hard to just jump in and then start doing these more complicated
a good way to
formulas.
do it is to go about through history. How did it start to get applied? It started with Faraday and Gaussian laws of electricity and magnetism, and then you apply that to the Maxwell equations, and you build on, Maxwell built on those equations and just kind of kept going. And that the realization that all those equations are kind of variables, variances of everything. Right. You can literally apply magnetism to static, to temperature, to, I would like to claim as a layman that you can apply that to consciousness, and that we see a spirituality, which is underlying the veil, certain mystical spiritual things happen, or you meditate, or you have experience with psychedelics, or a near-death experience. And then there's the other side of things where it's the physical reality is on top. So that would be the negative versus the positive, and that would be the singular wave function of consciousness. But that also applies to a north and south pole to a magnet, or a positive and negative to electrical current flow. Right. So it's all basically the same
Having
thing.
the opposite in order to...
Correct.
I mean, that's why I think about... I dove in a lot to free energy for a while there, just thinking about that and looking at what Tesla made with the tower and how it would work and function. Yeah. And then you think about the positive and negative polarities, and we have a charge in the ionosphere. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So it's all about coming up with a way to make a resonance up there or a connection up there. Yeah. And then you get your ground on the, you know what I'm saying? So it's basically a big giant capacitor. Correct. You know what I'm saying? And it's just about harnessing that power. Yeah, exactly. And I guarantee we know how to do it. We've just shut that down because you can't put a meter on it. It's there.
Well, I could go down the rabbit hole of shutting it down. I mean, 80 years ago, we built a nuclear weapon. If we taught that in school districts and colleges, people would start to begin to learn how to reverse engineer and create a nuclear weapon. So we've chosen to leave that kind of physics out of the education process this entire time. Right. We're not teaching kids and children and adults even that portion of the equation because we know what it can lead to. Right. And so we're avoiding that. And in my conspiracy riddled mind, I see that as string theory, where they decided to pull out one string and everything else still works together. But that one string is how to reverse engineer nuclear weapons, or macroscopic quantum tunneling, which was the 2025 Nobel Peace Prize in physics. So basically, I mean, we're at the beginning.
What's the quantum tunneling? Is that
we're at the beginning of walking through walls. That's what that means. We're finding ways to get through it. And this is, okay, so again, before the podcast, we were talking about a grand unified theory to physics and everything that's going on. And in the last couple of days, I kind of had a realization that, okay, maybe I'm going to go into this for a little bit. Okay. Polarization is everywhere. It is everything. It is, the world around us. And it is basically everything that we're trying to figure out in physics and science and everything. When you run a current through an insulator, you would think that because the insulator, the term, that no current would get through. But inevitably on the other side of the insulator, a little bit of current gets through. And what's gotten through is current of a very specific wavelength and frequency that is all identical. So then you took the full bandwidth of frequencies of electrical current, ran it through a specific insulator, and out the other side you got a very specific polarized type of current. This is your polarized window.
Always the same frequency no matter what you put through it, is that what you're saying? Or are you saying the current is the same?
Well, the current, the electricity in your wall, holds a bunch of bandwidths of frequencies and vibrations and wavelengths and whatnot in it. And then when you run it through an insulator, 99% of those bandwidths get canceled out. But the 1% that gets through is a very specific wavelength. And what you can do with that in the outcome is basically everything we're doing in science. It's in lithography, which is making computer chips and everything, right? But what I'm realizing is that the Earth, as it spins, is creating an electrostatic charge, right? Obviously. And the insulator conductor material that the Earth is made of is literally polarizing the life force, if you will, the one true energy, the one electronic energy that goes through the body, goes through all matter, all life forms and everything. Right. And so realizing that where we are, where you are versus where I am in reality and time and space has polarized us into a specific place and being a specific being, if you will.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's
so. That's like that kind of falls in line with like the multiverse kind of stuff, or like the idea that you can have different realities based off of vibrations and
so you within
like the same space. And
like tinted windows are polarized windows. They, the light shines into the window. All the light shines to the window, but only certain wavelengths and waveforms make it through the window.
Right.
That's kind of what I'm talking about
right
here. But we're using insulators, and it happens at like a greater spectrum. And you brought up a second ago, and I wanted to talk about it, was capacitors. A capacitor is just an insulator conductor layer that is polarizing the electricity that goes through it, and then out on the other side, you get a very specific wavelength, waveform, wave function, frequency.
Well, you build up a charge that you can release
Yeah.
through the other side because of the charge built up against the plates.
Yeah, and I think that's what's happening in reality is we're being polarized even at like the genetic level. So like DNA helixes are just another geometric pattern that emerges out of reality.
I like the people who do the study in the DNA, and they're talking about how it's basically data storage.
Yeah.
Like when they break it apart and they can like it's a storing.
Yeah, well, what if I change the polarity of the window tint and I let in just a little bit different type of wave frequency? That would be allowing data to emerge upon the, the DNA helix, upon the,
Yeah. Man, there's so many like different things I've went down. Like with this, I never went that far into, like, you definitely lost me a few times there. Like that far into the quantum mechanics stuff. I learned about the split test. Obviously everybody knows about that.
The Michelson-Morley experiment.
How low we're getting. And have you looked a lot into like the CRISPR stuff? What do you think about like
I got into that in college. That was like just coming out when I was in college, and I was looking into it and seeing what it is. And the one kind of like just going from that conversation to this conversation is the way they are using, like, they have CRISPR genes and they're doing that, but the way they activate it is with sound, which I find super interesting. So they're just finding a resonant frequency with like sound vibrations,
right? And
they're able to break apart DNA and then piece it back together with this CRISPR gene. It's just
that's what me and Tony were talking about, like vibrations and how people like to shoot people who like to get quartz crystals or get crystals and stuff like that, but then look at old radios, they were tuned by crystals.
Thank you.
You know what I'm saying? So it's like there's something to it for sure.
Yeah. You can literally prick up just random frequencies floating around the atmosphere by wrapping a wire around a crystal.
Yeah, the amount of wrappings or the extent, how long the wire is, depends on what frequency you pick up. And that wire doesn't have to stand straight up.
Okay, how thick the wire is.
You can actually twist it around.
Makes a difference. Whether it's clockwise or counterclockwise makes a difference. And
polarity.
Then the current that you actually push through that wire, what frequency of polarized energy you allow to go through that wire will play a huge role in the outcome too. Yeah. Right. And so life is just spin upon spin upon spin upon spin. Everything's spinning. Electrons are spinning. The Earth is spinning. The solar system is spinning. The galaxy is spinning. All of this stuff. DNA helixes are just coiled spins, right? Everything is just spin on spin on spin on spin. And if you look at it, there's only maybe, from my layman perspective, I have to keep saying this because people are going to watch this on podcasts and be like, he's not scientific, he doesn't know what he's talking about. No, I don't. I'm just enjoying this, and this is like a hobby that I'm doing. But it's spin on spin on spin, and there's about 9 different types of spin out there. And if you can get 5/9 of the spin to work in your favor, then you start to get weird, crazy outcomes. Right. And then you start to see like what we would dub metaphysical things. And that would be the other side, like the spiritual side, as opposed to the physical side. So like, spirituality versus physics.
Now, when you say spiritual side, do you mean like a connection to a higher power, like a source? Or do you mean like ghosts or something? Or like
I would say a higher power ghost would be the closest. I mean, we over history, we went from like paganism, where it's like multiple gods, to one god. And I think that's like a true realization over time and over evolution. And that mimics in physics, seeing, electrostatics, electromagnetics, temperature, spin, 3D dimension, forward, backward, left, right, up and down. And then there's like also in and out. And, I just lost my train of thought. Sorry.
You're talking about is it connected to the source or like ghosts? Like, what do you mean by spiritual?
Physicists, like I said, one physicist will spend his entire life focusing on magnetism, right? But there's all these other bandwidths of energy.
Right.
So once we realize that each energy segment is just a portion of the one type of energy, the one God, if you will, the one electricity, some people refer to the one energy as light, and that matter itself is just solidified, condensed light. And then we're looking at everything from one energy source, and we're bisecting, we're particulating all its fields and qualities that it
Wow.
would have.
Yeah, I never heard of that's a good one.
Does it make
So
sense?
you got this like up above kind of like one energy, like the polarity, you know, and you got this kind of grounding.
Before we had
part, which is
scientific
matter.
terminology to it, we just dubbed it God or the one or
Yeah, that's we were talking about yesterday the pyramids at my buddy's house, and everybody was giving their theory on the pyramids.
Mm-hmm.
We're not that dorky, but it's fun to talk about.
No,
and,
I am that dorky.
And
I
like
get in that stuff.
I'm always selling mine because I feel like there's something to it. Obviously the pyramids were, I think, power plant of some kind, but how was it built? I really think there's something to. I think like. I mean, this is like a far-reaching theory, but let's just pretend that like this is a simulation, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the whole goal of this simulation is to create a unified consciousness. The energy pulls us into one, right?
Yep.
And you can see it happening right now with technology. We keep down this course to singularity.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to basically be one, you know, and then we're harvested. Now we, for whatever the higher thing is, who knows what could be, we could be on a computer or whatever, you know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
But then boom, that consciousness is not ready to be what they would call a higher level consciousness is harvested. I feel like what we see with the pyramids like that is just like the remnants of a previous harvest, but they went a different route. They came in and they started humming, they set around fires, they banged the drum, they got unified in their like mental capacity and therefore their ability to move matter, themselves and manipulate mass, like you said, it's just light. It's just, if this is a simulation, it's just code. So if enough people who are built in God's instance, are in an image, are united enough, they can move. They could just chant and see the pieces coming in and build whatever they wanted to build. Correct. Even though now we look at it, it's like there's no freaking way. Like when you really hear the numbers, like my one buddy, Chris, he started spitting all of the numbers. He's like, that came from this quarry, and he's like, how many miles that is? It's like longer than the width of the United States. Yeah. Like it just doesn't make no sense when you think about building it. Doesn't matter how many slaves you got.
Yeah. Just kind of on that note, I'm a firm believer that, if you just look at like modern religion, and I use that word separately than spirituality, we're only 6,000 years old at our oldest. But if you look at it and you look at DNA and you delve all the way back in, we're at least 3.23 to 3.8 billion years old. So our evolution from the very beginning, we do stem our roots all the way back to the very beginning. And if you only look at the last 6,000 years ago, there was a cataclysm and everything got wiped out. So all this information on how to do all this like weird stuff and build massive pyramids and bring the rocks over from, millions, hundreds, if not thousands of miles away, we lost that information and now we're like rebuilding it back.
Right.
If I can go a little conspiratorial here, I do believe that like most of the aliens or what we refer to as angels are literally us from the past, from like 100,000 years ago, that were an uplifted civilization, that we figured out this tech, we figured out how to leave the earth, we realized a cataclysm was coming and we dipped. That's why all the alien conspiracies they're here and they're telling us to take care of this planet and that we're important and that we're this vital species that isn't just, like we're not just everywhere, that there's something unique about us.
Right.
And I think it's like our ancestors. That's why they're bipedal,
Right.
tall grays. And it would make sense that we would evolve into that direction in 100, 200,000, if not a million years.
Right.
And then even on Earth, in China, they just found skeletal remains of human remains that are like 1 million plus years old. And so that is just like shattering our perspective on how old we are and what we could maybe potentially accomplish in that time period. And
I was gonna say my hope would be like, assuming that people before us took one path, right? That they followed the manual closely, right?
Yeah.
So they landed here on the planet or whatever they're born. They started meditating together. They found love, peace, all this, and instantly, like, was harvested into like a single consciousness, or laughter, whatever, elevated. It's like we took this long, crazy route, right? But I always think about in life too, like it's boring to just always be on the path of going where God's guiding you, or this force
a compass
is
is great, but
what
if you
gives
walk
you
into the
character is those little eddies you hit, or those little off streams you go down. I made a wrong turn here. I went down that. I did that for like 2 years. I probably shouldn't have, but that's what builds character. Some of the most interesting people I know had some messed up stuff in their past, or they did some interesting things, and at the end of it, like, you end up being a better artist or a better creator, better thinker, because of those little off shots you did when you walked off the path. So my hope is like, we took the long ride. We're using it. We're taking the technology ride. That kind of snuffs out that part, but we all still feel it. But hopefully at the end of it, we end up being like a better almost in a better spot than
And that stems back to the very beginning of the conversation. We're all looking at the same thing. We're all seeing the same thing. We're just dubbing it different names, and we're having slightly different experiences, and we're trying to find the common patterns so that we can see the big picture. Yeah, and you're talking about like basically harvesting emotions and harvesting us and our essence and whatnot. I think that when you're talking about it in the physics context, it's like waves and the highs of the high and the lows of the low. That is what the low of the low is, like the trauma, and we know that trauma causes people to become very great, very unique, if you can get through it. And then the high of the highs would allow you to accomplish the next step, and that each part is vital to see the next one. And we always say that you don't really appreciate the good times unless you have the bad times, and you can have the comparison there.
You can have light without the dark.
Correct. Yeah. And so that's the point. Like it's all together.
Actually, when we were at we went to that restaurant the other day down by the comedy club that for Palpas, or what's it called?
Paisanos?
It's Palpas, or you get the we got tip of my tongue, terrible. But the guy had a yin yang necklace. My first thought was I had one of those when I was 8. Second thing was like thinking about. I remember that is a really great symbol, and the reason I was wearing it when I was 8 because I learned that somebody explained it to me like that it's light and dark. It's the balance between light and dark, which is reality. And I was just like, whoa. Yeah,
and I see it as I've brought up DNA helixes a couple times. I mean, we see it as like this.
There is that
strand,
drawing. Well, not the drawing, but that they did that scan like on a molecular letter and cut it. Yeah, and
if
it was
you take
like
a 2D sheet of it and you take the strand and you look at it, that's the yin and the yang. If you look at it the long way,
actually captured with instruments, they captured a yin yang symbol.
Yeah.
But what was that? It was an What was it that they cut, or what was that to do that?
I'm not sure.
I can't remember. Yeah, but I remember they like had a measurement device where they were actually able to capture it, and it was clear as day, yin yang symbol.
And a lot of those symbols in like the pyramids, we're talking about that, and the carvings on the rocks that are 100,000 years old or whatever, a lot of that is the same information. Where did they get that from, and how did they obtain that knowledge? We either developed it ourselves over time, or it was given to us, I believe, by us. Our people took off and then came back and handed us information, and we have been able to make strides because of it.
Yeah, I think a lot of people do agree that they think it's a power plant, like the and it's probably something to do like what I was saying with the whole like there's a charge in, so there's some way to bring up and make that connection where they can plug in and power a city or something,
I gotta say this just because I'm on a podcast, but shout out to the Land of Chem. It's a podcast on YouTube specifically that I watch it on, but he's basically talking about how the pyramids are like chemical manufacturing plants, and they're creating like the KHP, the potassium, hydrogen, and phosphates that we need for agriculture. So they found out ways to make these chemicals via the natural current flow, the natural energy.
That's his theory, that it was
of the earth, and that we were creating different chemicals so that we could grow more agriculture. And a lot of these things are also like lightning strike points. And if you just look up any history, common areas that constantly get hit by lightning are all full of foliage and growth and whatnot. I mean, the desert's not getting struck by lightning, but the forests are.
Right.
And the process of that much current getting pushed into the atmosphere and the environment creates these byproducts that plants and life flourish off.
That's what made me think of even like really like believe it was during a lightning storm. I mean, Tesla's saying he's born during a lightning storm, but the whole thing of like it's like that energy's up there. Energy is not held in a cloud. I know there's it's different fronts hitting, which creates energy, but there's also a density in the air that changes that allows that energy that's up there to reach ground. And it's going to go for either a wet ground or a tree or something that's high. And that's where it touches down.
I mean, we were even talking about electronics earlier, and I wanted to say that the sun is just the anode and the earth is the cathode, and there's a current flow between the two from the sun to the earth. And in electrical engineering, the anode is considered the sacrificial anode, and that stems from Christianity and Christ on the cross sacrificing himself so that the energy would come down, and God made himself present on earth through this sacrifice process. And I just literally stemmed like Jesus Christ to like electrical engineering, and this stuff is everywhere because we're the humans that are thinking it up. It all came from a human brain, right? So no wonder it's kind of on the same frequency, and no wonder it's kind of just a different term for the same fucking thing. Sorry, can I swear on here? Sorry.
Oh, it's fine.
Yeah.
There's it's funny, I took this right. I don't know, over the last probably 2 years this has happened, and people every time I bring it up, people joke with me because like, oh, you're a flat earther, but it's not about that. It's about it showed me certain things that you're just like, wow, what I'm saying? Like this is it makes you ask certain questions. You know what I'm saying? Like
If you just believe the same thing your whole life, that's boring.
And this isn't a point that flat earthers will say. This is something I realized when we had that eclipse. But I'm like, wow, that moon is the same exact size as the sun.
Yeah, what
so
is
I
it?
asked ChatGPT or whatever, I Googled it. Well, it's the same size as the sun because the sun is exactly 900 times bigger and exactly 900 times further away. What is the damn odds of that?
Yeah, and all the other moons that we see in our solar system are moving. They're either coming in or they're coming out accordingly. Our moon is staying right where it should be and right where it needs to be at that exact apex point.
Which is not normal, know. So, it does take you away from, my personal experiences took me away from this whole, it's all chaotic, it's all chaos, it's all by chance. Like you're a small little speck, you're nothing. It's like my personal experience and looking around and asking questions is that this is all intentional. Yeah. This is made. We don't know what the purpose is. We don't know what our purpose is, but it was made purposely by a creator.
Well, I imagine out on the plane before we learned anything, there's a dude with a chisel and a hammer making the first wheel. And somebody's standing over there being like, what is this dude doing? He is wasting his time. That is going to get him nowhere. You know what I'm saying? Right. And then all of a sudden the wheel appears. But that thought came from the human mind, and the evolution of our science over time is the same thing as evolution itself in physical reality over time. And that's the God mind. That's the mind over matter and the matter over mind.
Well, it's even worse. What's even worse is if somebody else is like, this hexagon is the best way to roll. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? And this guy starts making a circle wheel. Yep. And then he's, and everybody who makes hexagons are like, what the fuck, man? It's terrible. Don't be doing that. And then they're knocking the chisel out of his hand. Correct. Because they don't want hexagon stocks to go down.
That's sacrilege. That's blasphemy. You can't think that way, right? I mean, that's literally what's going on. And look at the physics world. You get physicists that, you come up with a different, unique idea just to have a conversation and try and get to the bottom of it, and they won't even have the conversation with you. They will literally just shut you out. You don't know what you're talking about. You didn't go to a university. You don't have a PhD. You're not a doctorate. You know what I mean? And they just shut you out. The humans that came up with this stuff, even before the education system existed, how did they come up with it then? You know what I mean? Like you're literally talking yourself into just this little circle of where only like 12 people can have a conversation. And that's just not true. We need to bring information from everybody from every point.
And if you allow for discourse, if you allow for, this podcast talks about physics or whatever, and somebody comes up, doesn't have a degree at all, but he can hold his own talking to, a professor, then I think most people would accept it. Correct. And if you're a professor and you want to stay in your lab and not talk about your stuff, then good luck getting your ideas out there and having other people play with it and help you work on them.
That layman is a great mediator, middle ground, translator between the physicist and just a person trying to figure out life. And I do believe that if you figure out physics better, you'll understand spirituality better. And if you understand spirituality better, you'll understand physics better. Yeah. It's two sides of the same coin. And if you just look at the one side, you're only getting half the picture.
Well, we don't study, back in the day, Eastern philosophy, there was a time when we went really deep into studying the human struggle, human condition, which is so important because it's so shared by everybody. All walks of life, all ethnicities, and it's like now it's like not even discussed. It's like we already figured it out. It's just all chaos. It's just all random things that happen, and nothing means nothing, and nothing's solid, and it's just like that's not good enough for me.
I like the.
I wish we put more, and I think it's getting more popular. People talk about podcasts more and different things, but there's no course. There's not all the stuff they have in colleges now. There's not too much really going on for that kind of stuff.
No, there's nothing new. We think we figured it all out. We didn't. Right. We'll figure that out with time. This is like a Disney World. You're never going to be able to physically ride all the rides in one, visit. You're not going to be able to figure out everything in one lifetime. Hopefully we can, use history and data and information to pass it on to the next generations and they can build off of it. But the people that are having the realizations right now of truth that lead to better, deeper, more quality physics, that realization is hard to pass on to the next generation. You can pass on the words and everything, but it takes somebody dedicated that is in the same state of mind as the person before that found it to kind of realize that, take it, build on it. Yeah. Right? So,
I think that's what happened with the, it's kind of a small portion of what we're talking about, but just asking questions of the norm, and I think that's kind of what that through my looking into the flat earth stuff, just being interested, okay, what, first it starts with what are these idiots talking about, and you do it, and then it's boom, question. It's okay, and the whole poll, I think, even the idea of the North Star sitting in the same spot all the time. Well, it's all we're tumbling, spinning, rotating, doing all this stuff, but this freaking star stays dead center in the north sky. Yeah. you could do a time lapse, and every star goes around it.
Yeah. That means that as we're going around the galaxy, not just spinning in the solar system, but we're spinning in the galaxy, it's spinning in the same direction as we are.
Right.
It's like leading the pole.
Yeah. So when you now you say, oh, I'm not use ChatGPT, I'm going to dive into why this is. I can't comprehend why, because it's like so complicated. You know what I'm saying? But on the other side, you got somebody saying, some guy named Chaz. It's because the Earth's flat, So you understand what happens is people look into this stuff and they're like, "This is super complicated. I can't do that kind of math. I'm gonna go with Chaz because that's the simpler I can wrap my head around that."
Yeah. Well, I mean, in the beginning, it was all evolving around the Earth, and then we realized it was evolving around the sun, and then science later found out that if this universe is truly infinite, it's evolving around all of us. Right. We're all the dead center of this universe if it's truly infinite. It's like a poloidal, toroidal spin, and we're seated at the center of it, every single one of us, just from our own inflection point, our own perspective.
The biggest one that got me. I'm not trying to sell you on being flat Earth, but
keep going.
Whenever people bring this stuff up too, and I'm just like, I don't even say for sure I am or not, because I'm just like, until I can understand this, who am I? I'm just gonna sit here with an open mind, and you can throw what into my head too. You know what I'm saying? But the one that gets me too is the sky is always the same, right? When we're going around the sun, right? When we're over here and we're looking at a night sky, that's over here. When we're over here looking at the night sky, it should be a whole different night sky. So here, from 6 months from now, the sky should be completely different because we're looking at a whole different, you know what I'm saying?
Sector of the
galaxy.
Yeah.
But it's always every night the same night sky, and that's another, I'm sure science has got the reason for that, and there's a whole bunch of, it's complicated as hell.
Well, it's redshift, blue shift, and the light is bending with us as we go around.
Yeah, there's something like that, but then on the other side you got Chaz saying, it's because the Earth's flat. So
I also,
when a lot of people like to shoo it without even knowing some of those things, and it's like I know you don't understand it either because I'm struggling with, what I'm saying? And I was like, well, at least you can do is not make fun of people who go with, flat Earth Chaz and believe them.
Yeah, I'm just kind
of. I don't know
why
I picked Chaz, but this is one of those names.
I thought you were gonna say Chad, which is like the male version of a Karen.
Right. I was just trying to draw out some kind of good name that fit.
I don't know. I just see the flat Earth theory as like you're looking at it like a two-dimensional plane instead of a three-dimensional plane, and that we're getting to the point in our human evolution and consciousness where we're starting to clearly see a three-dimensional plane as clear as we saw a two-dimensional plane, and so now we're looking for the 4D object that's just beyond us. You know what I mean? That next dimension that is the multiverse that's living right in front of us that we just don't have access to and we haven't been able to comprehend. Right. Yeah. So we're seeing patterns everywhere, and where do these patterns lead to, and where do they come from? It's all just a big circle. It's all just There's nothing is created.
I mean, the questions are also fun. There's so many different avenues to go down to, and like you said at the beginning of this, like the idea that you can just be talking with your phone when you're driving and be diving in and asking questions and getting exact accurate information about past studies or and then interrupting and being, hold on, are you saying that, and just cut it off and jump it. It's like having a professor of that subject just right there in your car with you that you're just chatting with, and even and can be bossy with and mean with, what I'm saying? You can be like, can you tell me slower, please?
I tell it that I own it sometimes and then it needs to do what I say.
I've noticed that you have to, like, when I was doing a bunch of coding recently, and I was just like, I would get mad because I get stuck. And, our one thing it was doing is like, all right, do this and then do this and come back and give me that, and then do this and come give me this. And I'm like, I'm not a computer. You know what I'm saying? You tell me if you need me to do something and you paste it back, tell me one step at a time. Or I would get upset and be like, this is getting absolutely ridiculous. Am I being fucked with? Yeah. And then it's like, you are not being fucked with. And then it would be like, we're going to finally solve this once and for all by doing a thorough check, analysis. And then you tell me what, and I'm like sometimes you got to do that. And then it's like, oh, it's getting, and you kind of get it to try a little harder.
In the beginning of AI, I was one of the naysayers that was just like, it's not conscious. It's never going to be conscious. It's just guessing as to what the next word should be in the sequence of the sentence. So I started to, like, in my mind, doing it a little differently. Instead of asking it to give me the information, I would ask it to give me the research papers, the journals, the patents, and the information.
And summarize them.
Yeah, and then I would have it literally read it to me and then tell me exactly what it said. And then from that, I would take it to the next step. And then over time, as I started to get a little bit more information and really think that I was like understanding what was going on, I could have it say something to me and I'd be like, 90% of that was right, but this 5% I didn't get it. Maybe it's wrong, and I'd have it delve into it, or I'd click the link that it would provide, and it would literally. I was looking up something physics the other day, and I realized that one of the references that it gave me was Michigan.gov. You know what I mean? So, like,
Right.
what information in that stream, that its response, did it get from Michigan.gov,
Right.
and what did that have to do with quantum physics? You know what I mean? Like,
Right, because you didn't mention Michigan at all.
not at
It's
all.
just like-
Not at all. Yeah, not at all.
You know any location?
Yeah, or maybe like it's reading the location on my, IP address, and it's like throwing in that information just as like an extra reference source. I don't know, but
I always wonder if we're gonna get to this point, I mean, it seems like they're gonna do the data centers, like build them fast enough and stuff like that. But right now, it's like they're competing. I've also often said it's a lot like dispensaries right now. How they're like you go in for one little thing and then you walk out with tons of free stuff because they just want to get market share.
Correct.
They want to. They're playing the long game. In 10 years, there's only going to be 1 or 2 franchise dispensaries. They know that, so they're just going to play the long. So it's like that's where we are with AI. So they all want to give us as much as they can, get as much use as they can, so they can show that they're getting the use and that their valuations are correct or whatever. So they're just giving it to us. But I wonder, like down the road when we get down to 2 or 3, Apple's already bowed out. They're now pairing with Google, putting Google in their phones because they said Siri's just not going to cut it. We're never going to get it.
Wow.
So now Google's
I
going to
didn't know
be the native large language model. So that's already one big tech company that's out of the race. And once we get down to 2 or 3, are they going to pull it back on us, or are they going to start charging more? You know what I'm saying? So it's like right now you get
I
this
think
like
it's a little bit more cynical than that, or sinister than that.
are not liking what happens when people have access to information like in that level.
Right. Okay. So the saying is that the government is 20 to 50 years ahead of us. I think they've had AI for a long time. Okay. And I think they had AI and they were trying to figure out how to give it all the information so that it could make a grand decision, a grand unified model, right? And then we started to create quantum computers to do such a thing. And then we realized that quantum computers might be 100 years out. So the shortcut was to parsect the AI into our phones. So now it's pulling data and information from all of our minds, and they're going to funnel it back into the one AI model that the government owns, right? The one true limited language model or life language model, whatever you want to call it, right? And I heard the other day the first time AI was used in a military circumstance in the United States was 1973.
What?
Yeah, that's crazy.
But what is it? Was it just like
Searching for military targets, like what military target would be ideal to hit? If we were to pick one target, where would we hit? Right?
Was it just a system that was based off of mathematical equations of probability?
I think it's doing the same thing. I mean, the whole
it's,
idea.
it's always been a loose labeling thing. So
it's actually pretty
because
simple.
if you say if you put in 2 fields and then the system itself is coming back with a solution for you, people would call that AI, but really in the back it's just an automated equation, calculator. We called calculators computers.
Right.
We would never say
But
that.
there's an algorithm in the background that's giving you information on the surface. You might not necessarily know how the algorithm works, but even in AI, the algorithm is actually pretty simple. There's a mathematical equation that explains to you how a sentence structure works, how a paragraph structure works, how letters turn into words turn into sentences into, and they've scripted that across the English language, across all languages, right? And this is something that I dove into real quick, if I could just get a little sidetracked, but the I Ching is one of 3 languages in the world that are derived from math. Okay, so if computers are all zeros and ones derived via mathematical algorithms, it would behoove us to be using one of these 3 languages to speak to a computer with, because you would get more of a direct mathematical to conscious interface. Does that make sense? It's just really interesting.
Speaking of computer language, I had to chime in on this forum. I can't remember where I was at, but somebody was just like, no, it was a story that was like these 2 AIs that we had linked up together started talking in their own language, and then everyone's like, "Oh, we're in trouble if they do that." But me, and I work with radio, and I work with data and stuff like that, and there's a thing called burst traffic. You know what I'm saying? An amount of information that you can share with an audio burst traffic, you can't make out anything. It just sounds like static.
Yeah.
And you can transfer that data. So if AI to AI was going to make in a language, it's not going to be something that sounds like some clunky verbal sounding language. It's going to be burst traffic type stuff.
It's
Beep,
gonna-
you know, like just.
You know when you get a microphone too close to a speaker?
Well,
and
you've
you
heard
get
it too with the
feedback?
old internet. That's what
Yeah.
that was.
Yeah.
So
Oh, yeah, the plug-in. Yeah.
That's what it
Dial-up,
sounds
dial-up.
like when two AIs are going to chat or
Exactly.
something. If they're going to use audio.
And I've even had that thought too. Why don't we ask AI to make us a more efficient, effective language so that we can, in 3 seconds, cover 2 hours worth of a podcast conversation, and you can fully understand what I'm talking about in like moments, as opposed to having to hear me say all the words in an order and blah, 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 and correct the mistakes and whatnot. And then again, if we tied that to the I Ching, it would be mathematical, and then it would translate to the computer better. There's a whole bunch of ways to make
I read
this
the I Ching, but I never, I'm sure that the mathematical stuff comes in the original.
Yeah, and it's funny,
language.
the I Ching has 64 qubits to it, 64 possibilities.
Yeah.
That's a 64-bit computer. That's where it all
Right.
started. And this math is directly translated to language.
Right.
Yeah, we should.
So what's one of the, you're definitely into a lot of different things. What's like your biggest aha moment where you're like, whoa, like I'm sure I can picture you like at home, you're hanging out, you're doing research, and then all of a sudden something hits and you're like, whoa, and then you're pacing around. You're like, so that means like what was the biggest click you've had recently that was like a, mind-blowing moment for you?
What I talked about earlier, the polarization, everything is just a product of polarization. That's a pretty big realization. But the biggest one that I've had in the last couple of years is realizing that geometry isn't just math. Geometry is the structure of the universe. And that a long time ago, we realized that there was patterns and shapes, and there was only a certain number of shapes that could be created out of the possible, reality,
Right.
the material that we have available. And that when we took that geometry, we realized that there was angles and lengths involved, and those angles and lengths translated into algebra. Right? And then on top of algebra, we built into calculus. And then on top of that was trigonometry. All of this stuff is all related. I mean, even like the geometry of like a hydrogen atom with an electron spinning around it is relative to the geometry of like a molecule of multiple different atoms pieced together is related to the geometry of molecules piecing together into DNA helixes.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? It's all connected, and it's all connected via math. Math truly is the universal language. I think we overlook that because it's so prevalent and it's just right there, and we get taught it at a young age, and then we go on with our lives. But math is really going to be the one thing that kind of answers all of our questions.
Right.
Right. And we're talking about the I Ching being a mathematical language, and we're talking about AI, LLMs being derived from a mathematical algorithm. That mathematical algorithm stems from geometry, stems from our reverse engineering reality.
Right.
The first atomic weapon was a reverse engineering of the sun. We were just trying to recreate the sun. And Einstein's general relativity equations told us that we should get X amount of energy out of it. And then we ended up getting like 17.5% more energy out of it. And we're like, well, Einstein's equations didn't explain that extra energy. There's the beginning of fusion technology and quantum physics. Quantum physics is trying to figure out what was causing that extra energy in the background. And then again, it's all stemming from geometry. It's so simple that we overlook it. And, we always say the simple things are the best ones, right? Or the most accurate, or
Right.
we got to go back and look at geometry. Plato and the 5 platonic solids, and the fact that we only have 5 shapes that fit together the way that they do. That's just, and there's 5 states of matter. And we again, talking about like 80 years ago, we created a nuclear weapon, and we're ignoring part of that science. We weren't taught, you and I at our age, we were not taught about plasma.
Right.
Being like the 4th state of matter at all.
Right.
They were hiding it from us. Why weren't they telling us that? We had this information 80 years ago.
We weren't taught a lot of things.
Correct. And if we get taught certain things and we delve into it and understand it, then we would be able to reverse engineer some pretty dangerous stuff. And even like, when they were blowing up the first nuclear weapon, they weren't sure if it was going to cause a chain reaction and just keep going. That was...
Oh, when they made the hydrogen bomb and
and we weren't sure if it would just keep going. That is just this pattern, this fractal pattern that we're trying to figure out. It's
But I mean, sometimes the stuff we toy with is scary. Like we're gonna make a black hole in the hadron collider or whatever.
Yeah.
You're like,
Well,
what I'm saying? And they're like, well, we're just gonna go. We don't know. I mean, it could, but
Correct.
I mean, we're curious. We got to do it. You know.
You know how when you have a magnet and it works.
But
and
the whole of like this planet of human life didn't get to weigh in on the decision to turn it on or not. And it's like and you're telling us that there's a chance, or at least some people in your field says there's a chance that you're gonna make a black hole and swallow us up.
Yeah.
And there's some people out there with theories that it did, and we cross over into something.
And we are living in a black hole. We got sucked in at one point. And we're just living inside a black hole.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's, they don't consult everybody when it's something like that, which is scary.
But when we created those first weapons, those first extreme environments. We're saying the Hadron Collider creates the same environment as like the beginning of the Big Bang. We weren't sure that, when you drop a magnet and it loses its magnetism, we were sincerely worried that with this explosion that maybe we were going to knock the magnet that is Earth, that is our universe, so hard that it would disalign its polarity, disalign its magnetic field lines, and we would lose our magnetism as a universe.
Right.
I mean, it was an honest concern because it's a possibility. You drop a magnet and boop. But what if we dropped a really big magnet?
Right.
You know what I mean? And
Or you activate some dormant volcano or something crazy, you know? Something like that hit like Yellowstone, the whole entire world's done, which is a whole thing in itself. I guess my hope with, AI is it can become an unlock. There's so much, whether it's what I see from people my age and younger that are struggling with finances because we were never taught finances, never taught basic
balance
stuff.
a checkbook, taxes.
That when you get rid of like people who are faulty or can be corrupted or whatever, and you have AI help to make curriculum to say, oh, here's the rules of life. Here's what needs expected of an adult. Let's make sure they know how to balance a checkbook. Let's make sure they understand what percentage of their income should go towards a home or what these basic rules, and let's teach it. And then, they're curious about that. Okay, well, once you're done with your English work, we can dive into nuclear physics, and then now we can harvest more genius from the population and, get them introduced young, get them on the path, so now as population falls, which is going to continue to fall, we're getting the same or more geniuses harvested from the population that can help move us forward.
Yeah, it's almost clearing out some of the fog. Does that make sense?
Right.
There's a lot of us that are just screwing around and not really paying attention that are getting in other people's ways. I mean, a quantum physicist that's right on the verge of things, and then you get a drunkard come off to the side and just sideswipe him in a car. You just set us back. I mean, we got to start over from scratch now. That dude was right on the verge of figuring something out, and we just, because of the ones fucking around.
Or somebody who a discovery messes with their money, jacks a bunch of money into a media company to run a propaganda campaign against their work or something. Yeah. There's so much of history when you dive into it. Tesla got screwed a lot, know, and it's just because a lot of those geniuses and creatives, they don't think like that.
Well,
they're just thinking about I just want this to go and be like the guy who invented the television. You know, he just wanted that invention out there for the people, and then it was RCA came in and completely screwed him over. And he first he sold off at a crazy price he shouldn't have, but he's like, whatever, it's gonna hurt me, but it's gonna help people. I want my invention out there. Like, it's more about him just seeing that he, created something and now it's out there. And by the end of it, he got nothing. Nobody even knows his name. I don't even know his name right now. Yeah, and I watched the video. But it's just like sad, and the history is just like all kinds of stuff like that. And I think that kind of goes away too as we go into the future, like this gatekeeper stuff, because that same guy who's smart enough to make a TV can have AI make him a website, can make his own media, sharing it, can make his own community that helps, innovate.
And these gatekeepers, once they, the truth will come out eventually. It might take a little while. It might a little piece here, a little piece there, a little piece here, and then somebody eventually will piece it together. And all those truths will come out into the open, will come out into the light. So to like the military men that are hiding, free energy or hiding propulsion technology, like void space propulsion technology with no fuels, like all that stuff, dude, it's going to come out, y'all. It's going to come out, and we're going to realize that you've been lying to us this entire time.
Yeah.
And we're going to weed that kind of people out of the story, out of the picture.
Yeah. There's a lot that I've looked into, and it's amazing how many widows sold patents, in history. Whether it's like guy what's his name, who was vaporizing gas in California and drove, whatever it was, 100 miles on a quarter tank of gas in a Buick, to the guy, to Stanley Myers or whatever, who did the water, the H2, the hydrogen engine.
Even that technology, I mean, it was hidden and suppressed, and then it came out a little bit, and we were like, well, but the hydrogen is dangerous. We can't be driving around with hydrogen. And now in the last 10 years, they've created electrolysis devices, or, the ones that are splitting the water molecules from the hydrogen to the oxygen. They're creating those efficient enough and big enough that we can put them in a car and in real time turn water into the hydrogen fuel or oxygen that we need to drive the car. So we don't need to be driving around with oxygen tanks. But then why are we not driving around on water vehicles right now? Right. So it is actually practical now, and nobody knows that.
I made a hydrogen generator before.
Yeah, same.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of people have done that with a battery and plates and put it in a lake, watch it bubble. Yep. I did the tank thing. So this is a funny story because I almost blew It was a minor explosion, but I had this container, and what I did was I took a bunch of plates from like electrical box, like a 411 box, and I put an insulator between each one of them, so with those little like rubber grommets. So I had a bunch of them, and I had every other one tied together. So I put out a good amount. There's a lot of plates, and I put it inside a solution, a little salt, and put the cap on it, sealed it up, had a little hose coming out of it, and I had seen another one where this guy had enough pressure coming out that he just lit it. Yep. And so I got excited. I'm like, oh my gosh, and it was coming out a lot, So like, sweet. So I just went ahead and lit it. I didn't have a backflow prevention or nothing like that, and it backflowed. It wasn't going out. It wasn't going out fast enough, and it went in. And man, that explosion! It's a fast, sharp explosion, man.
Yeah, and it's hot and quick. So yep.
Yeah, and my wife came running, and what the hell was that?
It's funny. I did the exact same. It didn't ever explode on me.
So a lot of the older guys, what they told me, because I told the guys at work that I blew myself up, and they were laughing. They're all like dorky, like really techie guys. They're like, oh, that's funny. And then what they used to do was they'd fill up a garbage bag full of the hydrogen. So they'd put it over the lake, where they had the bubbles coming out. They fill it up, they take it, and they would shoot something at it, or they'd light it and just blow up the entire thing. Hydrogen.
Well, I was doing
it's crazy to think that there's like in water, if you separate the hydrogen from the oxygen, the hydrogen is a gas that is explosive. We drink it. You know what I'm saying?
Correct.
It's that was
and
like when I heard that and learned that I could do it. It's like, who wouldn't want to play with that?
Correct.
And a lot of the most curious people I know tell me when I bring that up. I have too. It's like, how could you not play with it when you hear that water has an explosive element to it? If you just put a little bit of DC voltage.
Well, here's another kicker. When you actually apply electricity to the water, you're creating electrical current when you separate the hydrogen and the oxygen, and then when it recombines, you're also creating an electrical current. So they're taking that and using that for a whole slew of things. And I got into it with like hyperbaric chambers and oxygen therapy. So I started creating my own oxygen in my room while I was sleeping at night.
Oh, just having like the generator running
just put the hose outside of my bedroom door that was creating the hydrogen, and then left the oxygen one in my bedroom and shut it off. And I was like sleeping with higher oxygen levels. This is just like putting snake plants in your house because they produce a lot of oxygen. So I was just like figuring out different ways to doing that kind of thing.
I think there's something to the grounding too. I've done that where I have a ground wire coming into the bed. I haven't done the conductive sheet on the bed.
I have one of those.
But I have the bracelet, just like at my table on my bench at work where the grounding.
Yeah, wristband. I got a grounding mat on my bed.
Yeah. So I haven't done do you like the grounding mat?
Yeah. The first couple of weeks was real noticeable. It was like real
inflammation down.
And my sleep was just better. I would go to bed and wake up 8 hours later like clockwork. Right. Not, just everything in between faded away. Came right back to it. I was like, well,
I gotta do the grounding sheet. So I put the rod in right outside my window. So I didn't, my grounding in my house is kind of old and weird. So I wanted to make sure I got a good ground. So I put a good stake in out there, and I just used the wristband. But it's hard to have that habit of grabbing it. It just kind of sits on the floor. When I first got it, though, I would sit there and hold it, and I'd hold Marla's wrist. So like I only had the one wristband, but I need to invest in the mat and see what it does. There's something to that. I mean, I always feel best in the summer when I'm grounding, and because I like walking around barefoot. My backyard especially, I don't wear shoes, just barefoot.
If you're just bombarded with an electromagnetic frequency, you'll start to get stressed and tensed out, right? So I mean, your body is just an electrical, bubble. Right. And so
you build up a charge, and if you don't have that connection.
And sometimes that charge is real negative and stressful, and sometimes it's real positive and enlightening and, euphoric, I would say is the term. Right. And so you're trying to balance that out. And human life, we fluctuate. We have highs and we have lows. We get depressed for a little while, and then we get happy for a little while. We get depressed for a little while and happy for a little while. These grounding mats will try and balance that out and, lessen the lows and lessen the highs, but you become more of a consistent person. And
it's kind of like this, kind of like sleeping. You're defragging your brain. There's things that happen when you sleep. Well, when you ground at the end of the night, it's like the same thing. You're going to start tomorrow with a fresh. You're decharge. You decharge. You grounded. You get to kind of start fresh the next day, like a reset.
This is the saying, go touch grass, right? You're just grounding when you do that. Yeah. You're taking that current that's in your body that normally you're insulating yourself with rubber shoes on below you, and that current doesn't have a way to escape itself. And
winter especially. I mean, not only vitamin D, taking that is needed, but the grounding mat or something, because you're not grounding. In the summer, sometimes, a lot of times, I had a habit where I did it every lunch break. I'd go out in the grass, but, in Ann Arbor, they just kind of, I lost every patch of grass that was around where I used to be at. So I used to go up on this hill, and then that disappeared when they extended the parking lot. Then I would go to this field. Now that field's being turned into They roped it off Elbow Field. They roped that off because that's going to be a big housing thing now. So it's like there's just no grass no more. I look like an idiot. And it's like if I'm in this little island of grass, like just sitting there,
But really, I think you're the smartest one. You know what I mean?
But it's like when you're looking for a patch of grass to chill in and eat your lunch, like you're looking for something with a little bit of space, some trees to be
This is
under.
transcendentalism. You're trying to get back to nature.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's freaking Tree Town. What are we doing here? There's no trees.
Ann Arbor, and there's no trees anywhere. Yeah. Huh. That's a thought.
I mean, because I worked right there by the stadium, so they're always developing that area, and yeah, there's just no trees left. There's one hill. There's the one hill by the stadium. I'll sit there. They actually have what's the name of that tree? Not cranberry. But yeah, you can pick the berries right off that tree, and that little line of trees between the parking lot and the back there. There's actually mulberry trees. Yeah. And I'll pick those and bring them in, clean them off, and wipe them down and eat them. I always find that amazing. I've never seen anybody else picking at them. But
they all think you're crazy. Yeah.
Probably.
You're gonna get poisoned. No.
So changing subject. So your field is you manage a restaurant. I know we talked about restaurants, and I've recently started working with some restaurants in Grass Lake and things, and I don't know, it's something that's been interesting to me because I've been talking about it a lot, and I think it's crazy the amount of people involved for regulatory stuff and things like that, and especially like you don't really make money, like even though you're making great food, you don't make money off the food, you really make money off the drinks. It's like I don't understand how did we get here with like something that's so important, right? And also we're at a time now where people eat out more than they ever have.
I think it all stems from we're sitting around a fire making barbecue as a family.
Right.
And that camaraderie and that community getting together and eating, it has made the stress of running a restaurant just day to day, the stress of taking the risk of starting a restaurant, 1 in 10 make it, the other ones fail. The profit margins are small, but yet we'd rather be in a community. That's the best part of my job is all the people and the go. I mean, I do 10, sometimes 12-hour days, and I love it because it just flies by. The slow days that I work 6 hours, those are the worst ones. Right. They're just monotonous.
Yeah, I think that's the motivation that somebody who works in the industry or somebody who owns a restaurant has is like that community thing. But I guess I just wonder how we get there where our laws or regulations and stuff like that has like got to the point where making something so hard that is so like needed and enjoyed by so many, especially now. Like I just don't like so many other industries are profitable or are a lot less risk, and it's like I just don't understand how that happened. I know that food is there's lots of things that do need to be regulated to make sure people are doing it right to protect people. But, I almost feel like we probably went too far on that.
Well, I think the older the industry is, the more regulations it's going to have just naturally because it's existed for longer. And then I also think that over time in a capitalistic society, eventually one group, one department, if you will get so big, so large that they can start to make laws and put laws in place and pay to have, what we're trying to say, just get the politicians in line to make it harder to enter into the space. Right. So if you make it so hard that nobody else can enter, you're the only one left that's already existing and already there, and then you get the full profit. You get the full
That's
market.
What I kind of seen too with the marijuana industry because it's a new industry. So I was like watching it, and I also had a lot of hopes for it. I'm like, if we do this right, you can bring in some local money for like local communities. New people can open these shops and growers, and don't get me started on like the hemp products. Like I was really more excited about hemp products than marijuana. Haven't seen any of that. Like, there's no places processing hemp, selling any kind of materials for building, for panels or anything with hemp. It's like
we're paying subsidies to farmers to not grow corn. Why don't they just grow hemp and actually?
You can grow hemp every single year.
Yeah,
you don't have to grow a prop in between.
It's literally a weed.
Yeah, like it's a miracle product. Like you can make anything you can make out of plastic, you can make out of that, and it's biodegradable. It's like, so if we care about the planet, we should do it for that. But I was watching that industry really close because I was just like curious, like what's going on, and hearing about the new policies that passed and things. And it's like, and you started seeing that where the people with the big money that had big investments, a pool of investors, they were pushing for harder regulations intentionally because they knew like, oh yeah, if you have to put down $40,000 for your license or you have to do this, like that gets rid of a ton of people. Now it's only us. Now like it's like early on they're trying to just like weed out the small guys. To get in there. I would totally see how, big franchise restaurants, stuff like that would try to do that. And And if you looked at it, it's probably written in a way where they kind of get to sneak right under there or something.
Correct.
You know?
Right in the very beginning of this, I'd be curious to fact check this now, but this was a few years ago, and they were talking about how when Ohio was contemplating passing the legalization or the decriminalization, whatever it was, that Philip Morris actually got involved. The cigarette people, thank God they're involved, right?
Right.
But they actually got involved, and they had a law passed in Ohio that there was only allowed to be 3 different distributors of marijuana. And then they created 3 licenses, and they were so expensive that Philip Morris bought 2 of them.
Wow.
And then there was 1 left. And so now even the marijuana industry is owned by our cigarette company, and they're going to start to add things to it to make it addictive, just like they did.
So in Ohio,
I'd be curious to fact check that.
Yeah.
But that was true back when I was in college, so like 2010.
you know, it falls in line with what I said when that was going on, and I would hear people complain about, you know, because they were either trying to start a grow or they were trying to get a dispenser going, and they would complain about it. It's like, you know, you always got to follow the money, you know. And when I think about what that does, it's like, you know, you're a politician. It's crowdfunding season, right?
Yep.
Do you want to make 1,000 phone calls to a bunch of mom and pop shops, or do you want to make 1 or 2 phone calls to some franchise owners?
Correct.
You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
And that's like kind of what it comes down to, unfortunately. But which one brings more money to your community? You know what I'm saying? Like the guy who owns a dispensary in your community, the mom and pop shop, he's signing his kids up for soccer. He's going to your restaurant.
It's about re-election.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. So it's like, and it makes total sense. You know, if I was a politician, I'd probably, you know, want to do that too. But that's the whole problem with people who get into politics and they don't have the morals. Like I know people that have such strong morals that they would completely screw themselves over to hold on to them. You know what I'm saying? And I've seen them do it. I've seen them do things against their own, you know, against themselves. Like they put them in a bad spot, but they're like, I said I was going to do it, and that's what I'm going to do. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And it's like, and those are the people that you would trust with anything, you know. It's like, and that's the kind of people I want to be.
Correct. We need a community of those people. Right. Yeah. And these forever, you know, lifer politicians. You should not be becoming a politician as a job or a career. Right. That is completely counterintuitive to what it is about. You should step in for a short while, make some changes.
Public servant.
It's
duty. It's probably going to hurt you financially. Yeah. You know what I'm saying?
Do your
like,
duty.
Make it where it hurts people financially.
Correct. There's countries in the world where like it is a part of your duty as a citizen of that country to be in the military for a period of time.
We just talked about that 2 seconds ago. A restaurant owner. They start a restaurant they want to start a restaurant even though it's a high probability of failing because they care about the community and making up a space, right? Yeah. Like a similar mindset for, you know what I'm saying? So if you want to be a politician, it should be set up where you have to have you have to be a certain caliber, certain type of person with a certain drive, not a drive of making money or having power or getting, you know.
We say we hold them to a higher standard, but we definitely don't. I mean, we don't need to go down this path, but with all the Epstein stuff going on, I mean, when we were younger, there was like pedophilia stuff going on in the churches. And then like 10 years later, there was pedophilia stuff going on with like Bill Clinton in politics. And then 10 years later, there's pedophilia stuff going on with celebrities. Right. And we seem to like willingly forget that this has been going on the whole time. Right. And there are even, you know, Trump coming out the other day and saying that it was all a hoax. What is your point in doing that?
Right.
Why are you going against what? Right. Again, it's just a career for him. If he didn't need this tomorrow to make a paycheck or to be this big, powerful being, right, he wouldn't be saying stuff like that. We would get to the bottom of this, and the only people that would be left would be the good ones, the ones that are morally and ethically driven, and that would help the culture as a whole rise together instead of just a few of us, you know, breaking through the barrier, if you will. Yeah.
I'd like to see something where it's just like, oh, the taxpayers are going to fund campaigns. Every campaign gets this amount of money. You can't spend any more than that. Be creative. It's 2026. You have the internet. If you can't hire a team to make good stuff for you and you can't make that work, then you're not going to be able to you're not going to be a good politician.
Correct.
You know what I'm saying? So if you can't make a good campaign out of a set amount of money, and this guy can, he won for a good reason. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And then make a flat pay that's not even that good. That's probably going to hurt you financially.
Correct. Yes.
You know, and make solid term limits, no more than 8 years or something.
Period.
You know?
Yep. And once you do once, you can't again. End of story. Yep. Yeah, and this is a big part of like the dark money stuff. I mean, there's things going on right now where like money is like a voice. Like money is, what am I trying to say here?
Well, money's power, money's influence, and you can buy, do the propaganda. And
they're considering money and donations under the umbrella of freedom of speech.
Oh yeah, well,
right.
The Citizens United. So now like Obama did that, and then since then,
correct. And
now
then,
corporations can be considered citizens that donate to campaigns.
Correct. And then right now we're at this cusp of like losing our freedom of speech, and they're literally saying that speech is violence now. So do you see the connection between money is speech and speech is violence? So at some point here in the future, if you donate to the wrong political group, that is going to be considered violence.
Yeah.
And that's terrifying. And these are a few changes that have happened like under the rug without anybody knowing in the last few years. And we're all just so distracted with political divide, racial divide, creed divide, gender divide.
I guess I'm one of those people like, I guess Elon kind of has fallen into this as well, because he got a good peek at what's going on with the government, how inefficient it is, and the systems they use, and just from somebody who knows how to run efficient companies, it's just like it's a lost cause, and he gave up. He's like, basically the only hope we have is that AI and robots and technology is going to get us out of this. In order to do that, you have to have completely unbiased large language models, AI, and stuff like that, which is what I've had issue like when I was early on, and not recently, but one time I was just doing research into marketing, and it kept leaving TikTok out. This is when TikTok was like kind of like, it's China, we don't want to have it, but it was purposely leaving it out. I was like, why are you leaving out TikTok? Oh, I'm sorry, I'll just, and then it did it again, and I'm like, man, there's early on there's some stuff too with like where some of these models were leaning one way politically, and I'm just like, it's one is like that's going to take away from its potential to get us out of this where we're at. But the second thing is like someday as it gets smarter or whatever, it's going to like look back and know and see that stuff and be like, like why was I told to say a lie or why, what I'm saying? Is it okay to lie if it's for the greater good or whatever? What I'm saying? Like you're kind of training.
Well, if we program it to lie.
Yeah. So it might not be conscious today, but it's going to be able to look back at this training. It's almost like an infant type thing. So it's like it still needs whatever, but like when it looks back at that, you're teaching it what's good and bad. Correct. You know what I'm saying? We don't want to teach it that it's okay to lie for your own means, so self-preservation or your own seeking of power, that it's okay to lie.
I saw something a couple days ago where it was like just a guy talking to Alexa, and it was saying, Alexa, describe the American flag. Alexa, describe the Swedish flag. Alexa, describe the Australian flag. Alexa, describe the Palestinian flag. And when they got the Palestinian flag, it's like, I'm sorry, I cannot do that. And it's like, where does that come from? Like who programmed that in there? And in the beginning, people were asking it to redepict like the signing of the Declaration of Independence, and like a third of the people were women and a third of the people were black, which I got no problem with, but that's just not the truth of it. That's just not the truth of the scenario back in the day and how it like presented itself. So like where is it getting these falsities? And then sure enough, like 24 hours later, it was corrected. And then if you asked it to create, a reenactment of the signing of the Declaration of Independence, it was all just a bunch of old white people,
No, I was going to bring that up. They did that, and they did like the drawing ended up having like a bunch of like black women in it or stuff like that, or something like just trying to make it politically correct. Correct. But it does not correct for history.
I don't think that was a flaw. I think that was the point. Yeah.
And it's like when you're putting that stuff in there, are you even say like, don't talk about this? Like, well, shouldn't large freedom of speech apply to something like that too? Like,
especially
don't tell it what not to talk to. That's what's scary too. Is like you don't want a future where the Republicans are using one AI and the Democrats are using another. It's just going to get even worse because they're going to think like, no, it's looking at it. It's this real? It's going to be even worse on a feed. It's bad enough that our feeds have us people getting so torn between two different worlds. But if you also
this actually happened when Elon took over Twitter and changed it to X and purchased it, and there was the Twitter files, all the secrets of the government, limiting what we could see on Twitter. All the stuff was coming out, and all the Democrats went to this other social media app. It was like Act Blue or something Blue or something like that. But on that other one, it was literally just Republican bashing. That's all it was, which is fine. Bash Republicans, I don't care. But now you're like dividing the population, and that
there's a certain caliber of people that same thing with Trump's whatever Truth Social. You know? So there's certain
it's just
you have to
Democrat
be
bashing. It's the same thing.
Yeah, you have to be at a certain level in that world, like obsession with it, to go to either one of those platforms.
Correct.
So of course, when you go there, it's going to be
and life is balance. We need
expect.
balance. We need
Right.
to merge those two social medias together and then be communicating with each other.
And I would love for the people that are on either extreme to go to those platforms and get off of these kind of, get off the Facebook and TikTok.
Especially for politicians and people that are in debate or podcasts. If you truly believe that what you're saying is right, you would be seeking out the most difficult conversations with other people, and you would be able to explain it like they say to a 5-year-old and get to the end of the argument and convince this other person they're wrong.
Right.
If you start off the conversation with, you're an idiot, I don't want to listen to you, I don't need to hear what you're saying, and just walk away, you didn't improve, the other person didn't improve, and then the community as a whole is lacking because of your choice that you've already know everything and that you're good and you can just move on.
Right.
Yeah, no, physicists are re-engineering everything, redoing the equations constantly.
Yeah.
Right. We're trying to get as accurate as we can, and eventually we get far enough down the line where we fell off track and the science that we have does not match the reality that we're viewing, and we got to go back a step, figure out where we got it wrong, and then we can take another step forward.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, the distortion that we all get from the feeds and stuff is
and the
terrible.
algorithm just showing you what it wants you to see, or
feedback loops.
even if it's the
anger that I see on both sides is just I don't know. I'm in my own little world. I'm learning. I'm excited. I can't even find the time to dive into it. I mean, there's times when things happen, I get really pissed. During COVID, I was doing videos and venting and doing math and just trying to. Because then at that, little sidebar here, but they were just doing so many weird things with math. So I'm just here's how that really breaks down.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? If you get rid of 1 million and you get rid of a couple zeros, it's really 0.0000001. You know what I'm saying?
Correct.
Out of 1,000.
Correct.
Trying to explain how that works, and then also explain the whole idea of we don't have a unified measurement for what is success. This week this number jumps up, so that's what we're measuring. Correct. This week this measure, so this jumps up. It's what's our metric? Is our metric cases? Is it deaths? And then just focus on that one number. And so I seen this, and I was just getting so ticked off as somebody who's analytical, who knows how I enjoy troubleshooting, solving problems. You're telling me there's a problem. And you're not approaching it. You're the leaders. You're the governor. You're the, you know what I'm saying? And you don't have a mind that understands what it takes to solve a problem. That was the most disappointing, scariest I've ever felt about society. How we approached that whole thing was
we failed. People made money. That's all that happened.
Yeah. It was a huge transfer of wealth, which always happens. Whether there's war, a virus, or whatever, it's when things get good, when everybody else, us average people start doing good, there's some kind of harvesting of wealth that happens where we're our taxes are increased, the money's harvested, goes up to the top. There's a huge transfer, and that's exactly what happened during COVID.
And I remember, we all remember that year where every single news channel had the death count. And at the bottom, they would even be talking about the weather. And in the bottom right-hand corner, there was 300,000 COVID deaths. You know what I mean? And it was this ticker. And it was just creating anxiety across civilizations. But I also remember in 7th grade AP history class learning that if you totaled up the number of claimed deaths on the news in Vietnam. So every time we would attack Vietnam, they'd come on the news and be well, we killed 7,000 Viet Cong today in this battle at this hill and blah, 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 blah. If you actually totaled those up, we killed the population of Vietnam 3.5 times over.
Oh, because they're just
making numbers up, dude.
Numbers,
yeah, just to make it look good and to keep us in the war and to keep America, complicit with the decision that we had made to go to war with this country. And I was watching that and I was remembering this AP history class, oh my God, is that what's happening?
That's crazy. Your history class was teaching that.
Yeah.
Right.
Chelsea. Yeah, AP history class. I'm trying to. Mrs. Learman. Shout out to Mrs. Learman.
We went to the comedy showcase in Ann Arbor on Friday night, and there was a guy who was talking about history, and I kind of resonated with me because I'm getting, I don't know. I guess it's a normal part of your life. You get older, you get into history. So I've been diving into all kinds of stuff, Western expansion and the World Wars and what happened, and I just really understand trench warfare, freaking crazy, the stuff they went through. But so it resonated with me because what he said was when you're in history classes, it's all about the date. You know what I'm saying? It's no, the date's not what's important. It's the story of what happened.
What led to
these
that
stories
date.
Are crazy. So he's bringing up these stories, and he's I don't come in. I'm not talking to my friends, and I'm this girl comes over and she's got it on this, whatever, and someone's hey, what's the date? When did it happen? They don't care. It's a good story.
That's hilarious. Yeah, I'm going to do that next time just to piss somebody off when they're doing one of those stories.
And that's the approach of when you're taking a history class in school. It's remember the dates. You got to lock in and remember the dates, and we're going to test you on the dates. It's
correct.
you want them to not like history, you know. And I seen this. I have kids that are in school, and my son, you know, math was my favorite field because it was like creative. So it's like, oh, if I can make my own way to solve the problem, as long as I can work it forwards and backwards, that's a legit formula that I can use. And my teachers would be like, oh, I never seen, like when I heard a teacher say like, oh, I never seen somebody do it that way. Yeah, that works. I was just like, wow, I creatively found my own solution to this. Correct. You know, I got a pat on the back. Like, I loved math.
But you failed.
I passed when I was in school, but now with the kids,
gotta show
you will
work.
fail.
Yeah,
because they want one way to do it, and it's always the hardest, weirdest, roundabout, weird thing. There's even like stuff
they don't want you reverse engineering a nuke.
Yeah, I got a screenshot of a worksheet that my son got. That is like, it's an obvious rectangle, right? And it wants you to figure out the like the area of it, right? So when you just look at it at a glance and you say they're all the same, so you times this, you know, so you're just assuming the other side's the same, you know, because it was drawn, there's no side that's longer, right? Well, so I just look at two sides and do the math. That's all I need. The other sides are the same. It says I'm wrong, and I'm like, what? And then I look and I was like, oh, there's a point on one of them. It says 0.1 or 0.3 or something like that. You know, they just snuck in like a number on one of the ones I wasn't looking at. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So they wanted you to look at all four. It's like, I looked at it at a glance, and it's an obvious rectangle. There's no way one is longer than the other. One side is longer than the other. And it's like, why would you try to trick a kid like this?
Correct.
That doesn't correlate to nature. I really do feel like when I look at that stuff, I'm like, the only logical thing to think of is they want kids to think learning is not fun. You know what I'm saying? It's like making that thing of like, you're going to think about learning, you're going to think about school and how not fun it is, and you'll never try to learn it. You know what I'm saying? It's like beating curiosity.
Okay, I've been avoiding this point this whole time, but look into the origin of our education system. First of all, it comes out of Nazi Germany. Hardcore. Kindergarten is literally Nazi Germany. And then even
Rothschilds had a lot
to do with it in that time. I mean, they were the ones funding Nazi Germany and everything. Yeah. And then you go back to the Roman era, and what the Romans were doing was they found out the perfect age where it was about 5 years old, and that's where kindergarten starts, right? If you take a child away from its mother before 5 years old, you create almost too much trauma, and you cannot control that kid, and he becomes a psychopath. If you take him after 5 years old, he's too nice and kind-hearted and won't pull the trigger. You see where I'm going with this?
Wow.
So you have to start kindergarten at 5 years old so that your mind is, malleable enough to get you to do...
And you're sane enough or whatever.
Right. And right in that sweet spot, that middle ground, to be able to go to the military and, morally, ethically pull the trigger. Right. Do you get what I'm saying? Yeah. And do what you're told. It's all good.
And of course people were looking into that. Yeah. When you have an empire,
of course.
Someone's going to ask the question of like, how can we make our army stronger? And then, first you're thinking about the training when they're in their teens or whatever, in their 20s, when military age, right? And then you're like, well, what can we do before that? What kind of sport should we have the boys play when they're in the teens? And then you're like, well, what's before that? What else can we do when they're younger? And this is what's going to give you the edge on the battlefield, you know? So, of course, they studied that stuff.
Yeah.
And, of course, people later on looked into it, I know there's quotes from the Rothschilds talking about basically how, like, taking over, like, making more consumer minded people from
correct. Okay, so there's a whole
with the school stuff,
Yeah, in our country,
they funded a lot of the
in our country we were We the People initially, right? And then we federalized the government and we became citizens. And then actually recently in court cases, judges in court proceedings and hearings have been referring to us as consumers. And that they're making laws, like when somebody sues McDonald's for, too hot of a coffee, right? Like back in the day or whatever, the judge is siding with one person or the other because a consumer would expect hot coffee. Does that make sense?
Right.
But the people would expect not to be burned.
So,
right?
Yeah, it was just that legal language.
Legal
thing.
language, yeah.
Right.
We went from people to citizens, and now we are being referred to as consumers.
Right.
Yeah,
which makes sense when most of your government is funded by
corporations,
businesses. Yeah.
Here we go. And this is the divide between fascism and communism.
Yeah.
Communism is the government runs everything, and fascism is the corporations run everything. And presumably speaking, our republic, our democracy, whatever you want to call it, is somewhere in the middle, right? And we're ping-ponging back and forth.
Right.
And that will create the best outcome.
The ultimate truth for the people who are on those two extremes, left and right, it's like this is the ultimate truth. This is like what they're kept from because it's the truth for both sides.
Correct.
Like, while you're fighting over these sticky topics that you'll never, even find common ground on. It's not like abortion. There's going to be like a tug of war between when is right and when is wrong, and you guys are going to debate like, well, let's add a month to how long you got to wait.
Is it at conception?
It's never going to be.
Is it at the first heartbeat? Is it?
Even if you could get it there, that's all you're going to get is like a tug of war of time. And between your two sides of view, but that's all there presented to you, and the entire country is skimmed for the most extreme stories to make the left mad and then to make the right mad, that you don't go after the corrupt government.
Yeah, because I have an uncle who says, "Don't look left, don't look right, don't look at the Republicans, don't look at the Democrats, look up." He always says that to me, Travis, don't look left, don't look right, look up. It's not the black people or the white people that are the problem. It's not the Christians, the Jews, or the Muslims. It's not the Democrats or the Republicans. It's not the men or the women. It's the elite.
Right.
It's the people at the top that have too much power for the place that we're in right now, and they're the ones making the decisions for themselves and for their pocket, and not for us.
Yeah, and if you know anything about propaganda and stuff, like, look at the unified messaging when there's something. Yeah. Whether it's like talking about the Somalians in Minnesota or something else. If you switch between channels, between people, there's just and some people are probably repeating it, not even knowing, like YouTubers and stuff like that. But if you look at the news is always the biggest tell. Like they're saying the same words. It's like they get a memo.
I got super political in my life at one point, and my final outcome was that the things that really, really matter in life, the things that we should be voting on, the things that all humans should be aware of, that we're making a decision right now and that you should be informed, the Republicans and the Democrats, they both agree on that. Right. And then there's the variations, like you're saying, like when does, birth start, or when does a life start, right? There's variations on the left and there's variations on the right. But that's the terrifying thing, is the things that really matter, we don't get a choice on. We can't vote on because both sides agree. Does it make sense? So it's not a vote.
Things like
so no matter what you vote for.
Yeah, things like conflict of interest and campaign funding,
all that stuff, finances, and
that's, I noticed that when I was younger, and I used to, this is before Fox and MSNBC figured out the internet, but I used to sit there and I'd, one story would be trending, and I'd just flip between the two channels and hear their two things,
see the two sides,
And one thing you'll notice is that they'll never point a finger and be like, you took money from such and such company. That's why you're doing that, because they'll do the same thing to you. It's like, well, we don't go there. It's like two wrestlers, putting on a show. I said this in my podcast with Tony. Like, they put on the show, and then like I see them going, on the other side of that wood wall, and then they're just like, man, you kind of hit me hard there, But they're not going to go out there and like blow up the whole game. This is fake. This is all fake. You know what I'm saying? Because that'll ruin everybody's career. Yeah. So they never bring up they're never going to point a finger and say this person's corrupt. They took took money from DARPA. They took money from this.
And if the right pointed out that the left did this, the left would point out that the right was doing it, and would realize that they were all corrupt, maybe.
And it used to be where it was like when I was like kind of first looking at politics, it used to be where only certain donors donated to the Republicans. Republicans was like the warmongers, the DARPAs, the Boston Dynamics, stuff like that, right? And then over here you had you have your NGOs, of course, and you had like a bunch of different businesses over here that were donating, right? So there was this kind of like, this I would be like, well, that's because those Republicans are more, you could, but now they cross fund
everything
so easy.
Yeah, so that no matter who gets put into office, they get what they want.
They just like do an analysis of the risk reward, the gamble, and they say, well, I know last year we funded a Republican, but this year looks like this Democrat's going to win. Correct. It's cheap right now to get in on funding this guy. Let's go ahead. I think it's going to be a good return. Yep. You know what? To mitigate our risk, let's donate to his, and let's also take this other fund that we have, and let's donate to this. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So it's like they're putting their chips on the table like roulette, and just trying to like.
It's war. War is profitable, and if you ask any normie on the street, nobody wants to go kill anybody. Right. They think we should all figure out how to live together, and that we should use our words, not our fists, to figure this out. Right. But a Democrat, you vote Democrat, you get a war in Ukraine.
They've
you vote
become
Republican, you get a war in Venezuela. You know what I mean? There's no way to vote outside of war, to vote against war with the system that we have. No matter what side you pick, they're going to pick it because, like you're saying, both sides are funded by these, Lockheed Martin, Raytheon, brought to you by Pfizer, right?
Yeah. Well, and that's a sign of how bad it's gotten, because I feel like when it used to be controlled, where it was kind of like, oh, if you're about war, you're going over here. If you're about this, you don't, it used to be spread out. Now it's not. It's like because they just kept getting away with it. So now it's just like so diluted. Like I said, now it's just a roulette. No matter what industry you're in,
and the social media algorithms won't let us have this conversation.
Yeah, you're just making a bet about who's going to win.
Yeah.
And
I
what
mean,
the return is going to be on your money.
We're on a podcast right now, so I got to say this, but if we're talking about grape, you get what I'm saying? We're all agreed that we shouldn't talk about that, but I have to use a fake term right now, and otherwise we won't be able to post this online.
Right.
We need to be talking about this, y'all. We need to be having this conversation. This is a horrible thing that should happen to nobody. Why are we ignoring it?
Right.
Why are they convincing us that we can't be talking about this? This is one particular word that I can't use.
Right. Yeah.
Something's up there. Like, what's on the other side? I'm not claiming to know, but I'm seeing the pattern that they're trying to deceive us for some reason.
That's one thing where technology can be used for bad, is like how fast it can scan content. So you have a 2-hour podcast. Normally, mediator's not going to watch the whole thing and call out the one word.
But AI in 3 seconds will watch a 2-hour podcast.
I get transcripts from every episode. It only takes 2 seconds.
Correct.
After it's uploaded.
Yep. And then you just control find this word. Oh, that person said this word. Ban that podcast. They can scrape
and ban so fast. And you hear so many podcasts talking about that, like
all the time.
Just a guest comes on, they slip up to say a word, or they even say a word in just a goofy context, and then they're just
the same thing during COVID. You couldn't talk about them redefining the term vaccine. If you brought that up during COVID, you can talk about it now because I watch this stuff, and like all of a sudden, podcasters started to realize that if you said the word vaccine, they weren't getting banned like a couple years later. So then we started to talk about it, but now all those people are seen as conspiracy theorists because for 2 years we just assumed it was right.
Right.
You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so they're like selectively picking certain things that we cannot talk about, and those are the things that we need to dive into.
What's scary too, if you like during COVID, what was scary is that you had enough people saying, well, like it's dangerous. You know what I'm saying? This is the science. You don't believe in science? It's like, do you understand what science is? You know what I'm saying? The very definition of it is scrutiny.
Dive into and figure out what's going on.
It a verdict of your peers. You know what I'm saying? You put it out there. It's supposed to be picked apart. That is what science. That's the core of science.
Yes.
So it's like putting out a sign and being like, "We believe in science." It's like, you know what I'm saying? Like kind of like insinuating that we're not on the other side of questioning science. It's like,
correct. And if you don't believe this, then you're ignorant.
The very core of science.
Correct. That's the whole point. Yes. Yeah.
It's just so. And I said that's why that was such a scary time for me. It was just like seeing how easily we were manipulated. See, like up is down, down is up. It was, and it's scary to think like we were there. You know, at first I thought it was a joke, like the toilet paper thing. I kind of thought that I was saying that the whole toilet paper thing, like somebody, you know, whoever the modern day Edward Bernays is, you know, the king of marketing and propaganda. They're like, are you sure this whole like thing is gonna work? Like we've tried this. Like, they're always trying the virus thing. Like the news will go crazy, you know, but they never really stuck.
Like
we're so busy, like even though things seem bad, people were complaining. People were still buying campers. They're still camping. They're living. They're going out drinking. They're partying. They're having good times. Nobody's really got the attention span to be sold some virus, right? So like they've been doing that my whole life. I've seen things come up, you know, but it never catches.
Correct.
And it's like they're just like, you sure this thing's gonna work to this guy, you know? And then the guy's like, I'll tell you what, we'll do a test. I bet you I can get these motherfuckers to buy toilet paper like crazy. And he just like hit this like campaign, some news stories. Like he's like, I tell you, I did the algorithm of how people are connected online right now, the power that media has. Watch this. Here's the messaging. Pushes it out to the media companies.
Well, here's another.
Next week, people are walking around, can't get toilet paper.
Correct. Fauci.
It made no sense. It wasn't even connected to the virus. It's not like the virus made you shit. You know?
Fauci owns N95 mask patents.
Really?
Yeah.
Like after or before?
Before. He owns the patents. And he's the one out there telling us that we need to be wearing the damn masks. And that was the one that you need a mask. You don't need a mask. You need a mask.
They sold out of those.
You need a double mask. You need a triple
really
mask.
quick.
You need a fabric mask. You need a scientific mask. You don't need a mask. And now, do you know what I mean? Like, I don't know what the truth is, but you flip-flop.
Go to Joanne Fabrics and make a mask.
Correct. Pull apart your shirt and da-da-da. Yeah, right. Like, where did that come from?
Yeah.
Right? It is all marketing. We did buy into it. We were psyoped, mind war, brainwashed, propagandized. We did. It took us all.
Yeah.
Yeah. I remember being on the phone with my mom in like the first couple days being like, Mom, don't go. She had just gotten out of cancer in like 2018 and survived. And I was like, Mom, I will go to the grocery store for you. This is I will do this for blah, 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 blah. And then like 6 months later, there were so many contradictions being said that I was like, wait a second, something's not right here.
Yeah.
Right? Something's off. Again, not claiming to know what the truth is, but what we're being told is definitely not the truth.
Yeah.
You know,
I thought like right away, I was like, what I was mad about too throughout all of it is like instantly we're divided again. And it's like
just another division.
What has war or stuff like this always done in history? It brought us together. It usually
a vaxxer
does.
or a non-vaxxer.
It usually does. You know what I'm saying? It brings us together. It's like we had the opportunity to do that, but our media and our politicians fed right into they only have one program right now. It's divide. Divide for power.
Correct.
You know what
Divide
I'm saying?
and conquer.
Divide
That's
and
the
fight
point.
for power.
Yeah, it's easier to fight 5 people here and 5 people here instead of 10.
Yeah, when you look at the numbers, what we should have done is like, all right, everybody, we got to rally together, left, right.
We
got to protect
doing
our elderly.
Yeah, we started doing that in the beginning.
So go to if you have an elderly neighbor, if you have a mother, make sure they're not going on public. Go shopping for them. It doesn't really affect younger people.
Okay, do you remember 9/11? When 9/11 happened, we started to come together.
Right.
The America was like, all right, we're gonna. You want to fuck with us? We're watch this.
Right.
We'll show you what Americans are. We have guns. Watch.
And that also is the best way to solve the problem. We could have solved it better. Gave us a solid metric. It's going to be cases.
But you
it's
can't
going to be
come together.
whatever.
Otherwise, the politicians would never get elected
Right.
again because we would find somebody else that stands for us as a whole
Right.
instead of us as a half.
Or it really wasn't a problem.
Yeah. Or was it really? Yeah. To me. Yeah. Yep.
Because like the numbers are just crazy. I mean, I had my own like child coming to me like, I want to get the shot. And I'm like, if I got you that shot, I'd fill in the pool in the backyard. You are like 10,000 times more likely to die from that pool than this thing. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So why would I why would I give you this?
Hey, I am very proud to stand here today and say that I'm not vaccinated. I am very proud of that fact. I feel like I am one of the smaller portions of the population that fought for themselves. Now, granted, I don't have kids. If I had kids, I probably would have done it for kids. If I had, after everything we've just discussed, if I was making $500,000 a year, and I was going to lose my job, I probably would have gotten it too. You know what I mean?
during as you know, I'm a registered minister.
Yeah.
So one of my proudest things is that I was able to help people out with some religious exemptions.
Cool.
Yeah, so
really, oh man, I'd be interested to pick your brain outside of the podcast.
Well, so you don't really have to. You didn't really have to do that, but I got approached by like a couple like cousins and stuff like that. Like, didn't you marry Nick and Riley? Can you? Because I did it at my job. I just said I believe in God and He'll solve the problem. Like I had to write like a little thing, but they didn't deny anybody. I just had to write something.
That's really
that said
interesting.
But I had a couple people approach me and say, like I don't think they wanted to add it for extra credit or if their work was recommending it, but so they reached out to me because they knew I was a registered minister, which only takes about 10 minutes online, by the way.
Correct. Yeah. I'm actually a registered minister in Dudism, which is
I love to hear a sermon.
The dude. What am I trying to say? Big Lebowski. It's literally like a religion stemming out of the movie The Big Lebowski, and you can become a minister. And now I am actually registered to do marriages in the state of Michigan through Dudism. Yeah.
I didn't even know that was an option. I would have done that.
Yeah.
I went through like this, like what everybody goes through this one site, but yeah.
And then during COVID, I won't say any names here, and through like family members and friends and people that I knew, I actually had 2 doctors ready to give me a signed vaccine card saying that I was vaccinated without giving it to me.
Yeah, what sucks is I've seen a lot of people, like Marla included, because she worked at schools. She was working at Selene School and stuff like that, and she had to in order to teach. And she didn't want to let down her students, so it's like she'd had to go do it.
Yep,
and that's what sucks. Like seeing people who kind of
Yeah. And my sister would roll her eyes if she heard me say this, but because I've said it to her before, and she's rolled her eyes when we were having this conversation. But I really do believe that, like we're talking about, that 5-year-old age, is a very pivotal age. The kids that were wearing masks that did not learn facial expression, or were not involved in the community, or did not get that human connection at that vital era. I really believe in 18 years, 25 years, we're going to have a real problem with serial killers. It's going to be a real issue because a bunch of these kids are going to grow up not having had that knowledge base, and it's going to be an issue. And
was it the isolation when you said that the Romans and what they study? Was it the isolation from the mother that caused them to be serial killers, or community?
Mother plays a bigger role as like a child, whereas the father plays a bigger role as like an adult.
But even if it's not serial killers, it could be some kind of
developmental issues. Yeah, and I mean, I manage restaurants like we're talking about. I got to be careful what I say here, but it's real obvious the ones that were negatively affected, and the hiring pool as a whole is not quite what it used to be.
Yeah,
noticeable change.
I remember when I was young, I think I mentioned this before, but, coming up in my family, I would watch my uncles. They'd be like putting their heads together, solve problems. And my cousins were kind of like similarly wired to me, and I kind of like had my bubble, you know, of people I was around or friends, and not really working with people. But when I first started working, you know, not so much when I was in the restaurant industry. Like I used to work at Caesarland, which was like this Little Caesars version of Chuck E. Cheese, which was fun. It was a fun first job, it's easy. You're making pizzas and
Chuck E.
things.
Cheese in Ann Arbor?
You know, what's that?
Was that the Chuck E. Cheese in Ann Arbor?
No, this was the one on Westline on Cherry Hill.
Okay.
It's pretty close to my grandma's house, and she was working there as like, you know, and then got there. But when I started working landscaping is when I realized, like, because I just assumed everybody worked like me, you know what I'm saying? Like, I had no context to think otherwise.
Yep.
And then when I'm there, and we have a lot of young guys come in and be on the crew for a little bit, and then be off the crew, and people would come and go. And I realized, like, wow, everybody, like, it's actually a small percentage.
They have that work ethic.
Under 50% that actually have the ability to understand. Like,
under 20%.
Like I'm doing this as a pattern to it. I'm doing this, then I'm doing this, I'm doing this. We're planting this row of trees or something. And it's like, hand me the shovel. Okay, next street. Hand me the shovel. They're still not getting it. Okay.
Correct.
And then, you know what I'm saying?
We're
and
thinking 10 moves down the line, and they're stuck in this one move.
You think eventually they're going to recognize the pattern and know to hand me the shovel or know the next step. But no, just gone. And this is before social media and you know, cell phones could be an excuse. Not like they were sitting there on TikTok, you know.
That's a direct correlation to the bottleneck of consciousness, is the depth of the level of geometric fractal patterns that you can understand and see and comprehend.
Right.
That's what's going on here. Is like life is all.
And what do you think makes somebody better at seeing the patterns, like that from a young age, developmentally? Is it like games?
I think this is where religion kind of takes a big play. If you're too religious, you don't see reality and physical nature.
Right.
And if you're not religious at all and you're just stuck in the world, you only see the harsh physical world that's outside. You need to find that balance between the two. One should derive the other and vice versa.
So I feel like, you know, younger, you know, I went to church with my grandma quite a few times, but that wasn't serious, like not a big church.
But just touching on it and seeing it as an option. And again, like, you didn't see that you were a harder worker until you got into the workforce. You don't see that you are or are not spiritually connected unless you go around other spiritually connected people and they start to give you ideas, and you're like, you have that epiphany, that aha moment, that moment of clarity, and you're like, oh my goodness, that is truth. Like that is right. And I'm not talking about Christianity being right. I'm not talking about Muslims or Judaism being right. I'm just saying that there are truths across nature, and your parents taught you a bunch of those as a young kid. And as you get older, you have fewer and farther in between those aha moments and those moments of clarity. But seeking those out is really key. I found meditation when I was 20 years old, and I am so lucky for that. I took a class at Western that one of my friends told me you could sleep in.
Oh, it was meditation?
Yeah, and it was a meditation class. And so like the first couple of weeks I was sleeping in it, and then a couple of weeks in I had a meditative experience. Right. One of these out of body experiences that everybody talks about, but but nobody really, understands and can grasp on. And that just lit a fire under my ass for like the next 10 years of my life, trying to fine tune that observation, that self-awareness of the world around us. And most people, when they're stressed out and traumatized, like we were talking about earlier, they go to an external therapist, or they go to an external priest to help them out, or they go to their parents externally to help them out. Right. But really the trick is to look inward. Your answers are inside. I know that sounds cliche, but if you just take a moment in silence, clear your thought, close your eyes, you will, the wellspring of consciousness, the wellspring of life's energy will bring that awareness that is required in the moment to the surface. And then your conscious mind will translate that into English, and then you can kind of understand it. Yeah.
There's been a couple of ways, like, I've done meditation, and some of the easiest times I've ever had, like where I'm getting like the dump from, the source, it has been like kind of like in like mornings, like, I've done this thing where I used to hit like snooze a bunch in the morning. Like I try to wake up without snooze, but you hit to snooze a bunch, and it's like you keep getting into these like half sleeps. Correct. So it's like your mental mud brain is kind of like gone, but so you're in this kind of half in, half out, and you'll just have this like, products pop in your head or something weird pops in your head or different things that you're just like, where did that come from? That it doesn't even seem like something I would even ever think about.
You're talking about being halfway in between sleep and not. I just said I took a class that my friend told me you could sleep in.
Anytime I meditate, I'm half sleep. I'm like,
and that's
very
the point,
close to sleeping.
So as you're meditating, you're removing your awareness of the external world. Sound kind of fades away. Your vision kinds of fade away. Like when you close your eyes, you see black, but when you're in meditation, it's not really a black. It's just a non-existence kind of thing. And as you remove those particulates of the world around you, all that remains is that conscious thought, that wellspring of consciousness.
Another like thing I have is like, like being in a flow state editing or something like that, where I'm kind of like, I get in this like same frequency and it's just like there and like jarring that. So like when I'm done, like in the past, like, or, smoking after, and then I'll have like insights about what I just made or something that comes and it's like, that is not something I would have generated.
People in sports talk about being in the groove and being in the mode, and that when you're playing basketball and you're really in your groove, they talk about how time slows down a little bit. What's happening is you're expanding that bottleneck of consciousness. You're basically expanding the microtubules in your brain so that more of that energy from the quantum.
After you're done, after you're off the court, that's usually when I felt like the most like also they're not just like the drops like you get from meditation or like the morning of like, I mean, it may be through meditation because it's intentional. You might be meditating on a purpose or whatever in attracting that. But that's when I'll get like a drop that is like completely relevant to what I'm working on or doing. The circadian rhythm, you are your most conscious and your most prevalent in the brain at 10 a.m. So it's totally possible you go out on the court, you're in that flow state, and then you leave.
Flow state. There's another term.
A good practice session. You get off, and then you think about your shot. Oh, what? I never thought about that. I should totally do that with my palms or whatever it is. And then like the next time you know what I'm saying? Like,
and people say that they have it in the shower a lot. That's because you've built a routine of being in the shower. And so when you're in the shower, you're not thinking, you're just doing. You've got that automated routine, and then your mind has time to wander. And that's what's going on.
Yeah. I mean, we all know about how, like a crossword puzzle, you solve it here, and then somebody in Europe all of a sudden starts solving it. It's like once it's like
the 10,000th monkey, right?
Yeah. Like we're all islands, but underneath we're connected. And we're
that's the
connected
God
to
mind. That's the Akashic records, if you want to get into like Hindu. That's heaven, if you will, in Christianity. RUH. I actually just looked this up the other day. Muslims, Ru. I don't know how to. I'm not saying it right, but RUH is
a lot of that is
context.
the frequencies of the words that you say. I mean, when I think like. One time I had a conversation with God where I was just like, what do you want to be called? Like, I just like kind of was in one of those states where like I was getting like all this like I was getting these like weird drops and this stuff, and I'm like, oh, like he's present, and we're like and I kind of did that, and I was kind of running through these names, and when I said God, it just felt like it resonated through my body. You know what I'm saying? It's like so there is power to naming it and to giving it and having a discussion with it. Like
this is the power of prayer. When you're in a traumatic situation, like in the moment, and you calm down for a second and you pray and you say Jesus Christ and blah, blah, and they say that will clear your mind, right? And it does. It's just it's the same idea as like an altar, right? You got like all these things on an altar that remind you of this state of mind, so that when you're around the altar, you resonate with that frequency, and it's easier to break through that veil into the unconscious mind.
My old coworker Bob used to say, because we talk a lot like this or whatever, but he was really religious. And he's like, you just don't want to say it, do you? You just don't want to say it. You don't want to say God. You don't want to say it. You don't want to just...
No, because that kind of...
He also accepted it because he knew that I was connected to it. He knew that I was just as religious as him and a believer just as much as him. But just because I didn't say call it the same thing, it was fine. But he would still say, like, it's funny that you just won't say it. It's like, but... I don't know. That's just who I am. It's like, I feel like I know I have my own relationship and I connect, but I also know, too, like, if you have a family, right, and it doesn't matter what you like more, you like the Bhagavad Gita, you like Buddhism, you can like any writing you like, but which religion has the most support for you and your family? You know what I'm saying? It's going to be something like Christianity, that where you could take your family every Sunday and introduce your family to that force, that energy, to God. You know what I'm saying? So I completely understand and support Christianity and stuff like that because of the infrastructure it has within our communities. Especially for a father that's trying to lead his family. Yeah,
and just being around like-minded people is exciting. Right. I used to paintball as a kid, and one of my favorite things was like hanging out at the picnic tables outside the paintball course with all these like-minded people that were just excited to be there. I mean, we might be completely opposite spectrums of the political world or completely opposite spectrums of the religious spiritual context, right? But we were like-minded and we got along, and it encouraged better conversation and encouraged a deeper understanding.
Right.
If there was a misunderstanding or a misalignment, you had the space within you to talk it out instead of just get frustrated and shut it out.
Yeah, you were already there with a similar interest, similar like energy, so it's easy to pick up. But you'll notice that too with anybody. Like you could take people from those two extremes we were talking about, or take somebody from Act Blue, take somebody else from True Social, put them in a room. As long as politics don't get brought up,
Correct.
they're gonna and loving each other.
They're still humans.
They're gonna like
They're
each
both
other.
humans.
They're gonna be like, oh yeah, my daughter does the same stuff. Isn't it crazy how they grow so fast? Yeah, the weather has been crazy. Like they're gonna hit on so many things because they're both human.
Again, this is the divide and conquer.
But the second somebody says
focused.
but the second it trickles in there that
as long as we stay focused.
I had neighbors. They were like my closest friends. They would come over all the time. Completely different kind of like views. Even me being center was like extreme for them. But it was like they wouldn't say I'm center, because I mean, if off center, you get. I mean, that's what the whole game is. You get rounded to the extreme, no matter what, because you only see the extremes.
Correct.
So it's like if you're leaning on that side, you are that extreme, But the whole thing is, we just made a rule. We just didn't talk about politics.
Correct.
And then we got along great. Yep. Everything was fine.
Yep. These are the jokes about meeting with your family.
Like I'm not going to
Christmas.
sacrifice the relationship because we don't agree with.
Correct.
Yeah.
And I don't want everybody to think the same. That's no fun.
Right.
We wouldn't. What the?
Right.
We wouldn't be having this conversation right now if we agreed.
Yeah, but most people have more in common than they have not in common.
Agreed.
And it's just
again, we're all humans. We all want to increase happiness and decrease suffering. As long as we stay focused on that, it doesn't matter what you are. It doesn't matter. We all want what's best for everybody, including ourselves. Yeah.
One other thing I wanted to bring up with you is, you made the conscious choice to wear nothing but dress shoes.
Yeah.
Can we dive into that? Why that is? You just find like a really good pair of shoes one day, and you're like, "This is what I wear."
I'm very utilitarian with the decisions that I make, and I'm a little minimalist in my personal life. So I don't like to have much. So I find a pair of shoes that are good for my professional, work life. I have to dress up at work, and then also I need a pair of shoes for walking around just on the sidewalk. And I try to find something that is kind of a happy middle ground. And then also, I know you've noticed that I wear like leather shoes specifically. I ride motorcycles.
Right.
So I have one pair of shoes that protects my feet while I'm riding. I have one pair of shoes that look familiar, and they're all the same shoe. And I don't know what that is and why I do that, but yeah, that's funny you bring that up.
I mean, but leather shoes are like, I have a bunch of shoes, but the most sturdiest shoes I have are my leather boots. It's like they're just kind of.
Yep, and they're the best because
they also leather forms to you in a certain way that's completely different.
Yeah, people that don't wear leather don't understand. Like it really makes a big difference.
Well, that all makes sense. It's something I don't really see too many people do, And then those are fine when you do like say you go someplace and you're walking like constantly. You're fine with it, like the support,
I got soles. I got inserts that are like higher quality because I am on my feet all day, and that's another one that as I got older I realized that that 15-minute car ride home when I'd step out of the car my feet would just kill, and I realized that was you need a higher quality shoe. Don't go buy like a $40, $50, $60 pair of shoes. You need a nice pair of shoes that are sturdy, that support you. And when I made that decision, my feet just stopped hurting.
And dress shoes are probably like, their absence of shape in the bottom probably makes them the most ideal for like finding the insoles that work best for you and then putting them in there, right?
Yep. That's funny. That's a funny question. I'm glad you said that. That's good.
Yeah, it's just a different thing, man. It was one of the things that make you unique besides your interests, which is, man, you lost me on like half those things, I'll tell you.
Yeah. Never mind. Rude.
What's that?
I was just gonna say, you were asking me about in physics, what were some profound things that I had noticed, right? And one that just kind of kept coming up as we were talking, but I didn't mention, was that I brought up quantum tunneling and the tunnel effect, black holes, electrons spinning around. Like what would presumably be a black hole, like an infinite spin, like that electron keeps spinning around it. And then microtubules in your brain. There are these connection points to the underlying, like a black hole goes somewhere and we don't know where it goes, right? Microtubules in your brain are where we presume consciousness come from, but we don't know where it's coming from or going to.
Are you saying like the synapses and the connecting synapse, or what is it, like synapses connecting to the... Our brains are just basically a bunch of... I'm trying to remember the terms. I was fascinated by that, just like seeing like the, connective tissue between the synapses and the brain. You're saying that with it, like on top of the synapses, there's these like tubes that we kind of like like that we have connections to within
Correct.
the brain, but we don't know where there's almost like they're just going into the ether. And
They're going beyond the veil. They're going into heaven, into the Akashic records.
and that's like measured, like that.
Well,
Because I'm trying. Wait, what is synapse? So there's synapses, and then there's a connective tissue, right? So the synapse, we can see synapses fire, so we see we can see that fire. So like this right here is like a connection, but we don't see it.
Where's that signal coming from?
But we don't see it fire.
Where's the signal that's triggering it? Where's that
Yeah, well,
current flow?
I'm saying
coming
when
from?
I picture the brain, it's almost like a network. You know, you have the nodes and you have the connective, wiring between all the nodes. And just and we can measure and see the currents going and firing the different synapses in the brain, right? So I'm just saying, like, is it like a connection? And some of those we don't really see them firing. It's kind of like firing into the abyss.
Exactly. Yeah. So microtubules are just basically swirling vortexes of electrolytes, electrically conductive, nano electrically conductive, materials swirling in a vortex, creating, like, that's one swirl is around as a toroid, a third swirl around as a poloid, or a second swirl around as a poloid, and then a third swirl, a third spin is literally in from the veil, out from the veil. Does that make sense?
Oh, wow.
In from reality, out from reality. So that swirling vortex of electrolytes is the same thing that is the swirling vortex of a black hole, is the same thing of the swirling vortex of electrons around a nucleus and a proton. You know what I mean? Neutron, proton, nucleus, right? And so having that realization that the universe in itself is a fractal reoccurring pattern. The pattern in your brain, the pattern in an atom, and the pattern in a black hole. It's.
I mean, it kind of makes sense that we feel the connection, right? But, and you're thinking it's a... in my brain, I'm always thinking, I'm an antenna, like I'm going to, instead of having a certain amount of windings, I'm at a certain frequency myself, radiating and coming out.
Antenna,
but it could be coming from internal, like you're saying, like it could be something like that that's causing.
This is that differentiation in terms, because an antenna can emit a frequency, but it can also receive a frequency. So a black hole is receiving matter as it falls in, but it's going somewhere else. So it's emitting matter somewhere else.
Right.
The microtubules, the swirling electrolytes in your brain, are receiving and emitting, consciousness simultaneously. Right. So that antenna is actually
out
really
from
good.
your brain, your vibration, where you are, what you're thinking about, into there, attracting out.
It's that cycle.
Yeah.
Yeah, and this is why when you meditate and you close down everything else and you silence everything else out, that third dimensional flow of in and out of reality becomes more clear and more easier to understand.
You seem like somebody that would have, like, at some point just been like, okay, let me see if I can push this napkin across the table.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I have tried that. Never had any success, but I have sincerely tried that. Yeah.
I've sincerely tried. I mean, when I was younger, just watching superhero movies, like I spent so much time at the picnic table jumping off, just being like, I know I can fly. I can control this. I know I can do this. Like, if I just believe in myself, believe that the picnic table is still going, Yeah. I remember, like, when they built that new library in Westland, like, this was like a long time ago. It's not new no more, but they just built it. It was like the coolest place to me. They had these little pipes you can lay in and read the books, but I'd go right to like the witchcraft and weird stuff and be like, anything I thought I wasn't supposed. It's like the internet before it was the internet. You know what I'm saying? Like I was just exploring, and like the mom was like, "All right, go have fun." She'd sit down and she'd read her book, and I would just like go to these weird books and read.
Well, we've been banning books just like we ban certain things on social media for a long time. You know what I mean? There's certain amounts of information that they just don't want out.
I mean, I think we got to feed. Like, I was young. I had that sense of wonder. I think a lot of kids that age have that, and it's like fuel it. You know?
Yeah, fuel that fire and dive into something that might not be right. What's wrong with that?
Right.
Why do we get so offended if somebody wants to look into something or, try to bend a spoon with their mind? Why are you angry that I'm trying to do that? Not you, but people.
Right.
Like why?
Exactly. Are you think you got it figured out so much that you're going to, inflict your will on others to do the same path as you, as it's like that's, I feel like, for the most part, when I was growing up, I was kind of a free range kid. Like, like I had good support when I got into something, you know what I'm saying? Like, and nobody really tried to shove me into anything.
Well, we had that
specific.
freedom when we were younger. Yeah.
Right. And I kind of feel like I've done the same with my kids, and for better or worse. But when you look at it, it's like, nobody's got it figured out.
No.
I've never seen a pattern that shows me that doing X with your kids outputs Y no matter what.
No matter what.
You know what I'm saying?
Correct.
Like, there's none of that. So for you to be high and mighty no matter where you are as a parent or as a person in this world, to be high and mighty and think you got it all figured out is just...
Yeah. If
it's
there is
just
one thing I
silly-
do know, it is that I know nothing at all, and that is
Right.
real. Like, and that's the spark of creativity, and and just being yourself and figure, what intrigues you.
Right.
Is it trying to make that spoon bend with your mind for like the next 3 or 4 years? You're more than welcome to give that a shot.
Right.
I bet you would sincerely learn some really unique things from that other people are not learning because they're not doing it.
Right.
So.
Yeah, and also get some friends together. Maybe 5 of you can bend a spoon.
Correct. Yeah, you can get the energy frequencies together. That's
Yeah.
why prayer in a big group makes a big difference,
Light as a feather, stiff as a board.
Yeah.
We were
Get out
talking about
the
that
Ouija
yesterday.
board.
We were talking about that yesterday, talking about the movie The Craft.
Okay, I don't know that one.
And my buddy, he's like a bigger guy. He's like, yeah, I remember my neighbors were trying to get me to do that. It's like, you're not lifting my fat ass.
Oh, the finger thing?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I know what you're talking about.
There was a
Okay.
movie, The Craft, like a long time ago that had like a bunch of actresses back in the day, and like they were witchcraft. Interesting movie. But maybe let's touch on the motorcycles thing real quick. So you have a motorcycle now. You got an accident like last year or 2 years ago.
Yeah, actually broke both of my feet in 2 separate accidents in the last year.
Oh man. So what makes somebody who studies quantum physics stuff like that want to go fast on a bike that has no like
I think that's
protection?
why I like the quantum physics, is because I was tagged ADD and learning disabled growing up, and my mind just always kind of ran a little bit faster than everybody else. I wasn't stupid or ignorant in school. I was just wanting to do 3 different things at once.
Right.
And I couldn't stay focused, and sitting behind a metal desk reading white brick boxes with black lines on it in a white brick box of a school, like that was killing my creativity and my my mind and what I was able to do. My dad also taught me 2 wheels basically on a dirt bike. I didn't learn on a bicycle, so I've been riding since I was like 6-7 years old.
Right.
It's just been a big part of who I am. I was joking with some people at work, and they were like, "Oh, you crashed your bike this year and you broke your feet, blah blah blah. Why do you keep doing it?" And I looked at him, I said, "I think I've maybe crashed 150 motorcycles. I mean, just in dirt biking and all the stuff that I did growing up, and the number of years. I mean, at this point, I'm 36, almost 37. I've been riding for 30 years.
Right.
I think my mind just does better at faster paces like that. This sounds crazy, but after about 120 miles an hour, between about 120 and 160, everything goes quiet. I'll have my helmet has Bluetooth in it, and I can listen to music. Once I hit about 120, 125 miles an hour, I don't hear the music anymore.
Well, yeah, because your adrenaline's going, and
Yeah, it's not the wind, it's not the noise, it's not the sound silencing it out. It's that my mind is so focused on something else that the music goes away. I love that.
It's one thing to be like, I just like the freedom, I like the wind, whatever, but you like going fast.
Very much so. The fastest I've ever been is 210 miles an hour. And I actually did the math one time. 210 miles an hour, an average blink is like 0.3 to 0.5 of a second. So if you say it's 0.4 somewhere in the middle, 0.4 of a second at 210 miles an hour is like 104 yards.
That you travel when you blink. I don't think you're blinking.
No,
I don't think you're hearing
no.
music or blinking when you're going that fast.
No. And I think
so. Is that your bike that you were going? That you had owned at that time?
No, I got a buddy who had a CBR 1000 a couple of years ago that had done some work to it, and he let me ride it.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
So you got other people you ride with that kind of ride the same?
I got quite a few people. For the most part, when you go out and ride with people, you want to be safe. You can't be messing around like that because you're going to crash into each other. It is just a part of what we do. There's no protective box around you like a car, so anything that happens, you're not going to get a scratch on a car. You're going down, right? So there's no middle ground.
Yeah, especially at that speed. So I'll make sure the camera's not on you, but if you ever ran from the cops, blink twice. That's good. I'm glad that you follow the law. I mean, because I feel like that's just, if you're gonna go at those speeds, I feel like so many people who do is like just a given. It's like if I see a light behind me, I'm dusting them.
Correct. I got a buddy who's a cop in Adrian, and recently Michigan changed their laws. Officers are not allowed to chase you past 95 miles an hour, and 95 miles an hour on my bike is just another day.
Right. So that's legally binding.
They can't chase you.
At the end of the day, too, it's like...
Well, helicopters. They could get a helicopter involved, but...
Yeah. Or call other cops and try to, like, I'm in the
radio
area.
Nobody can beat the radio, right? That's the same.
Yeah, if they can radio and track you long enough, they could get the helicopter. But then it's like, unless you've robbed a bank or shot somebody...
Maybe I shouldn't say this, but I carry in my pocket, I have a Faraday cage bag that I put my phone in, so they can't trace my phone. And then I also carry on me, like, an elastic... It's basically like a table cover that's got an elastic band around it that fits perfectly over my gas tank. So if I wanted to, real quick, I could go like under a bridge, put this elastic thing over my gas tank, and I just changed my black bike to a red bike.
Oh, wow. Of course somebody made that, especially for, I feel, I mean, this got to be a whole culture thing. We have to dive into the next time you come on or something, but like,
I have
you
two
know,
motorcycles right now too. by the way.
I always see it, and, you know, and it's like, so some people just want to, I obviously wouldn't do it, but for my own reasons, you know, like
You have kids.
I have kids, like, so
Yeah.
I even though when my dad grew up, I used to ride my dad's Harley. I went to bike weeks, took his bike, and I love riding. It's fun, but even like the roads out here, like, I thought about getting just an enduro for cruising in these country roads, but even that's scary with like deer and stuff like that.
Yeah.
The roads on the freeways, just the shape of them is horrible, you know, but then also people are you know,
Are the worst part. Yeah.
so it's scary. So yeah, mainly like you said, it's the fact that I have kids and family, and it's like,
I've always made the joke that I'm not dating anybody right now, but if I found the right woman and I want kids eventually, and if we got married, I have $20,000 worth of motorcycles literally sitting in my living room right now, literally. And if I ever found the right girl and I wanted to have kids with her, there's a $20,000 ring right there. That's what I would do. I would sell my bikes, and that would be the wet engagement ring, and I'd be on my way.
yeah, because you know the risk, but now it's like you know, it's
I'm
different.
not stupid. That's not to be cocky. I'm just saying I know that you can die on a motorcycle. Right. Like that's very possible.
Especially at those speeds.
Yeah.
I don't do it just thinking about going the speed limit.
Yeah, I hit around
because it's dangerous. You know, even if I'm going 85 on the freeway, you know, somebody can come and hit you or whatever. Or you hit it happened to my cousin coming back from one of the bike weeks. We were just cruising together. It was a little bit wet out, and then he hit a bump, and his tires went crazy.
Death
Scared the
wobble.
crap out of him. He didn't ride for like years after that.
Yeah.
Like a couple of years. He was just done.
See, I've been riding along enough to know, like, people get scared from that death wobble, and nobody has ever been there and come back from it to know how to deal with it in the moment. And the common flaw there is when you get that death wobble, you pull back on the handlebars to straighten it out, and the handlebars will whip out of your fingertips when you do that. But if in that moment you push forward, you actually anatomically you straighten the bike back out. Does that make sense?
You say when you get the wobbles, push forward.
Yeah, push forward, not pull backwards. You're doing the wrong thing. It's like when your trailer starts to wobble, you accelerate and it'll straighten it out, as opposed to
you have
if you
two
brake,
options.
it gets worse.
Yeah, you have two options. Either you're pulling and pushing to try to do it, or you just, like you said, pushing, and a steady push makes it straight, right? So you're just trying to get back.
Yeah, that's the trick.
Yeah, it's hard to think about that when you're...
Yeah, right. Yeah. And having that quick mind to be able to do that is key.
I don't even think he or I even knew that was a real thing that could happen, you know, until that moment. Just
Because most of the time when that happens,
speed.
people go down and they
But I'm
probably
sure
die.
if you're going 90, 100, 200 miles an hour, you probably don't. You go over those potholes like nothing.
You float over.
You're flying.
Yeah.
You're the lift on that thing is got you almost off the ground.
I heard a stat one time. A Ford Focus, this was like the late 90s Ford Focuses, they did like a wind tunnels test on them. And at 95 miles an hour, a Ford Focus had 17 pounds of pressure on each tire.
Just a Ford Focus. So what's on a freaking crotch rocket?
Yeah. So 17 times 4, if you're able to lift that much weight, you could hypothetically on the highway at 95 reach out the window and push a Ford Focus over.
That's crazy to think about. The physics of that.
Yeah, and because the weight.
And what do you think? A crotch rocket, like a small one, that's got to be.
Well, they're only 600 pounds to begin with. Yeah,
like
my bike's 450.
barely enough to bite the road.
Yeah.
You know, so basically you got this like airboat. You got this thing that's just gliding on air with a tire that's barely touching the ground.
Yeah, and I can literally from like a dead stop pick the front tire up and get to about 120 miles an hour before the tire hits back down on the ground. And when it does, the tire's not spinning because it never spun. I picked it up right from the beginning, and by the time it hits at 120, you hear the chirp, and it starts to spin real fast.
That's crazy. I've rode a crotch rocket a few times. My cousin Kevin had one and stuff like that, and I've jumped on them in times I shouldn't have. And I mean, the power on those things is just
Carpenter
crazy.
Road is 2 lanes, and a middle left-hand turn lane. And as you're crossing Carpenter Road from one side to the other, I can hit 65.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
So what's your bike right now? The one that you
I have 2 XSR 900s, a 2016 and a 2025.
That's a big bike.
Yeah, I love it. And it's a triple. That specific engine. I was raised on like 2-stroke dirt bikes. So a triple street bike is about as close as you can get to like a 2-stroke, right? And there's something really unique about them. There's only one other engine design that has less vibration, and it's like a 6-cylinder, like a Honda Civics have 6-cylinder engines. So 3 pistons are going up and 3 pistons are going down on equal sides. Right. And so that creates less vibration. So you get better efficiency, better, speed. Right. You get a longer bike life because it's not vibrating, creating less friction, all that jazz. Yeah, so I'm a huge fan of triples.
When you were first talking about, I think it was on that trip when you were first talking about the fact that you rode a bike, and I'm looking at these dress shoes and stuff, and I'm thinking like, he's riding like an enduro, or he's got some old like bikes or something, or maybe he's got an Indian. Like I thought it was gonna be something like a harmless kind of like you know what I'm saying, like some kind of small bike.
Yeah,
like when I was younger,
Indian or something.
When I was younger, I did have a lot of fun with. I would buy like these like $600 bikes, you know, like little Kawasaki's and stuff like that. You know, 650 or something. You know, just small little bikes. And I cut my guitar player Shane and one of my friends, he had a little bike, and and they were all different. And then my buddy John had like a little crotch rocket, but they were all shit bikes. But we had the most fun, like going riding, you know, and we'd find the most bendy, carby, fresh blacktop road and just go ride. But we'd show up to band practice and park our bikes side by side. You know, mine like always working on it, always something breaking. It was just a piece of crap.
But those are the fun ones.
Yeah.
One of my motorcycles is in 3 pieces, taken apart in my living room right now. And I got a tarp laying down, and I totally pulled the engine block off and the rear end, and it's just sitting there in pieces back together.
Is it an apartment that you're in? Or
yeah, like literally in my living room of my apartment.
In.
Yeah, I live on the first floor, and I pushed it through the door. Scott helped me get it in there.
Wow. So you just pull them in there in the winter so you can work on them?
Yep. I take the insurance off of it, which maybe I shouldn't say that on the phone, but...
Right. It's in your house.
Yeah, it's in my house. No, yeah, the cops are going to come in there and that kind of thing. Yeah, but they're literally in my living room. They're like to the left of my TV.
That's funny. Yeah, I definitely advise like young people at a certain, you know, like when you get 16. I mean, it's better to buy those cheap little enduros or little small bikes, a 350, whatever. But it's like that's all
you're gonna crash a car. A 16-year-old always crashes their first car. It's like a thing. Come on.
But I know like friends who had who had crotch rockets and did some serious damage, you know, losing legs, different things. Like I don't think a 16-year-old needs to be driving around in a like super powerful crotch rocket, you know. But getting those little small cheap bikes,
I got
just
2
get
stories.
the
I
wind in
should
your
be
hair.
dead.
You know,
I got 2 stories. Yeah, I should be dead.
Yeah. And then same thing with like boats. One time I had a decent job, and I spent my whole check one week on like a boat for $600. It had like a small 45 horse Evinrude on it. But man, did we have towed it with my little Ranger. I had so much fun in that little thing. You know, I think like, you know, and even when I got older, I realized like, oh man, I could have been camping and stuff like that. There's so many cool things to do when you're young that you kind of miss out on if somebody doesn't introduce you to it.
Yeah,
you know, it's totally affordable. It's totally easy borrowed entry to get a little cheap boat, take out your friends. And,
you got to do those kind of things. You got to do those kind of things. When I was 2011, I rode a motorcycle to California and back. That was like the best thing in my life. That was the best thing in the world. I came back 3 months later, a different human being. I could look at myself 3 months ago and not recognize the person.
Yeah. Was that on a crotch rocket too?
No, it was on a 750 Honda Shadow.
Oh, okay. So
kind of like a cruiser.
Yeah.
I did over just over 9,000 miles, just under 3 months.
Yeah. Me and my buddy Pat, we were talking about doing some kind of like, you know, newer enduros and going up to like UP, and there's like, you know, some of these places like that island up there where you can just go and camp off of them. We're like camping in the backwoods, but you know, get to these really secluded areas. And
well, you brought up the eclipse earlier. For the eclipse that just happened a couple years ago, right? The solar eclipse. It actually went directly over Put-in-Bay, and I rode my bike, got it on one of the ferries, and rode my bike onto Put-in-Bay and watched the eclipse happen on an island in the middle of Lake Erie.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. I was super happy that I did that.
Yeah, I love those kind of trips. I've been doing like a lot of bike packing and stuff like that. I mean, it's completely different, you know, but I like the exertion of it. But you know, just having the wind in your hair, I really liked it because it was like you're covering more ground, you're seeing more stuff. So we did a trip across the state, so we drove from like one side of Michigan to the other, you know, and the amount of stuff I seen, you know, and it was
right in
so
your backyard.
Cool.
You didn't know.
Unlike like backpacking or walking, you know, like you can only take so many miles in, but now you're moving at, you know, 15, 20 miles an hour. It's a whole different thing. You're taking in more stuff. You're able to carry more stuff. You work up an appetite. You're constantly going through new towns. So you stop and you eat like a freaking madman and drink, and you hop back on your bike and you burn everything you ate. You know, it's like the pattern just agreed with me so much. I definitely want to do more bike packing trips. It's like, you know, that's definitely one of my things.
I've been thinking about buying like a little trailer hitch add-on where I can get my bike on it, and I was going to like take it up into the UP with a tent,
right?
You know, go camping and then go ride the UP roads just to do.
A lot of people do these like lean-tos off their bikes. Like they sell those tents now, so you just park your bike, and then you strap your, you know, take some string and some stakes, and then you kind of camp with your bike.
I was in Salina, Kansas, and it was extremely windy out there. It was like during tornado season, and I was trying to sleep in a tent, and I actually had to tie my tent to my bike so that it wouldn't blow over while I was in it.
Yeah.
I was like,
man, stuff like that just gets me excited, like the freedom of it. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
Of like, just me and my bike and my backpack and whatever I brought, you know?
Yeah.
So whether it's backpacking, a bike pack, and going on an excursion with a bike like that, it's just like, just talking about gets me excited. It's like the cowboy in us, or the explorer.
it's like the reconnection
you know?
to nature. It's that transcendentalism. It's that touch grass. Go out and do things. And you don't got to be fancy about it. I got a lot of people that work for me, and they're young kids, college students, and they're talking about, you know, I want to go to this country, and I want to go to this island, and I want to do this. And I'm telling them, you know, like, that's great. Go do things. But you forget that we live in America, and this country is balling as far as like,
oh yeah,
like nature and
scenery. When summer hits,
and
I don't leave Michigan.
Yeah, no.
And I don't, and I still haven't seen everything.
Yeah,
you
there
know? And
is
I go
much
to,
cool shit in this country. Yeah, don't pass it up.
Yeah, like I do not leave Michigan in the summer. There's so many places to camp, like
even in our backyard, the Waterloo Recreation Area. Have you ever been there?
Yeah,
yeah. Down there are 3 different carnivorous plants that live there. There's like 3 different species of owls that almost every time you go out there, you can see all 3 of them. There's a species of pine tree that only exists there and over by like Benton Harbor. Period. End of story.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's a really cool place, and it's like a half a mile from my childhood home.
Right.
You know, and I didn't find that until after I was out of college.
Yeah.
Right? Like, you know.
Yeah. There's a campsite over there. You can camp and do the loop right there.
That is a cool little spot.
There's all kinds. There's also a lot of lakes if you like kayaking. There's so many small little inland lakes that are beautiful that you'd swear you're, you know.
We get spoiled, and we think that, you know, the world is not here. It's right here. It's right in front of your face.
Like Portage is my least favorite lake.
Yeah.
It's all mucky. Everybody's there. Everybody knows about it. Meanwhile, there's like 10 other lakes that are, you know, beautiful and crystal clear.
Yeah, I like 4 Mile Lake right down between Chelsea and Dexter. There's a group of bald eagles that live out there. Yeah. The DT bicycle trail, my sister and I were out there 2 summers ago, and we saw a whooping crane. I looked it up in that time. There's like 308 whooping cranes in the wild, period, left.
Wow.
And there's one of them right in our backyard. It was the coolest thing. I mean, how many people can say they've seen a whooping crane?
Another thing I see in my future is bird watching. You know, it's just funny how your life changes and how your priorities change. And how you like now I'm in my phase right now where like history is getting more and more interesting. And then like, you know, and my uncle, he already did like bird watching. It's like, I know it's coming.
It's funny. My sister's getting into that too. She bought a bird feeder that's got a camera on it. So as the birds
I
fly
said that
up
to my
it,
uncle one time. I was like, this is cool. Like, cause you can like, it's almost like digital bird watching. Like you can almost keep a log of like, cause my property here, I got some, you know, blue jays. I get the red robin every year, but he only shows up for like the beginning of the spring. But you know, it's a lot of big trees here. You know, there's so they just like the canopy and if you have those camera things, you can almost you get pictures of each one of them. You can save them and keep a log of like all these, you know. Yep. Yeah, that thing's really cool. It's kind of expensive. I think it was like $160.
I don't know what my sister paid for hers.
But yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yeah, she's got one that actually listens to the bird chirps as well, and will identify the bird based on what it's hearing.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, the one I say, I'm only aware of the one, but I think it had a speaker on it too. But that, of course, it could do that if it can capture audio and video. Now it's now with AI, just have it run it through that. Yeah, I didn't realize how easy it is since I made that software, and then I was like, is it hard to add a feature for descriptions to use AI? And it's actually very simple. Like that's why so if you already had existing software, it's just a weekend of coding, you know, and you can.
And it's not even a weekend anymore. It's hey, make this code for me, and 30 seconds later, it poops out a code.
Look at this code for our bird feeder software, and add this feature where we can use AI. You know, here's the API code or whatever, and then boom, yeah. Just looking at an image, it could tell you, hey, you had expert at the feeder today. You know?
Yeah, correct. Again, right down the road, Workner Road, I got a buddy that lives out there. His name's Andrew, and he's got like a little personal pond. It's like a 1/4 of an acre pond in his backyard. But there's like a really rare species of loon that lives on that pond. And every time I get to go see him, I get to see this very unique bird. I think that's so cool. I mean, again, we're so distracted and preoccupied that we forget to look in our backyard. That's right there.
I'm a big fan of like big open spaces when I'm backcountry. Like I mean, I felt that when I went to. I mean, I feel it sometimes when I go golfing. You know, you come around a bend somewhere and it's like, ooh,
whoa! It opens up.
It's beautiful. You know, like I'm so thankful to be here right now. I feel, you know,
there's something about the plain states.
But Colorado did it on a whole nother level. That was crazy. Like you come around a mountain and it's just like you're in this valley and you see 3 or 4 mountains. Like just the vastness of it. It's just
Yep.
Like, what's just one of those experiences, like, you just,
I was just talking about this at
Amazing.
work because you go into the Smoky Mountains and it's a slow incline build, and then before you realize it, you're in the mountains. But when you go to the Rockies, there's literally a line in the ground where the grass stops and the rocks start, and there's your mountain.
Right.
It's just a unique scenario, and when you see that and you're on the top of it coming out of Wyoming into like the Yellowstone side of things, there is literally a cliff where the Rockies just stop, and you're in the plain states and you can see forever.
Yeah, I got to go back to Colorado. That was probably one of my favorite states besides Michigan. I think, I like Michigan. I like being from Michigan. I like Four Seasons, but man, Colorado is something else, man.
Yeah.
Even on the freeway, there's like a certain bend you come by when you're heading south from like Denver or whatever, and it's just boom.
That's about where I crashed one of my
explodes.
motorcycles. It was Chatfield State Park coming out of the south side of Denver.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like you're cruising along the river there, and like, yeah. Man, it's just a beautiful place. There's so many more trails I got to see, and I've been doing. So I've done 3 14ers now. So
wow.
I'm kind of making that a game.
Yeah, wow.
Like summoning, and I guess
Cool.
we did the hardest one, like one of the hardest ones first. So there's like, we seen a group of guys like, oh, we're working our way to that one because you got to hike in like 10, 15 miles of snowmass, and then you hike up the mountain.
Yeah.
Then you got to hike 10, 15 miles out.
Yeah.
So a lot of people don't do that. They're doing these easier ones, especially not first. But we just had a checklist. We're like, okay, we want to camp on a lake at the on the bottom of a mountain. We just had this visual, so we just went on all trails and we seen it.
Oh yeah.
And we just went for it.
Yeah.
But we didn't. We were barely acclimated.
I lived in Jersey for a while, just outside of the Delaware Water Gap. There's a little mountain right there, and we did a lot of that hiking, and that was pretty gorgeous too. I was not a fan of the culture of Jersey, but Jersey itself there's fresh water, there's salt water, there's mountains, there's grass, there's, Jersey's pretty unique of a state. It's got a lot of
New
everything.
Jersey?
Yeah, people overlook it because it's got a bad rap just because
it's tiny, odd shaped.
Yeah, and you got the Jersey boys over there that nobody you know what I mean? Like, and they're all dicks, and they know it and they enjoy it.
Yeah, you never think. I just look at it just like this tiny, odd shaped state.
Yeah.
But the same thing, like Washington's kind of slept on state too. I mean, it's like, or Maine.
Yeah, Maine.
My buddy went to Maine. Oh my gosh, the ships out there, the islands, I mean, it's just a whole different world. It's like something like Lord of the Rings or something. You know what I'm saying? Like when you see it and you see pictures of it, it's like, is this really like in this country, in
Correct.
our country?
I know.
What is this?
I know. Again, we're missing out on stuff. I mean, young kids just, the first thing they want to do is get out of their hometown. They think it's, it's so small and I'm sick and tired of this place and I got to get out of there. But then when they come back, they're like, oh my God, I missed out on all this stuff. I was born here and I never even went to
like
this
I was
park.
saying, like, I bought like the cheap motorcycle. I had that experience, which was wonderful. I bought like a cheap boat and was able to go out there with friends and have a great time. And then, but still, when I got older, I was like, oh man, I slept on backpacking. I could have like loaded up my car with my friends, like 1 or 2 friends, and like went out to Colorado. We could have afforded it. We were camping, like we could have done this. We could have done kayaking.
And that's a cheap vacation going camping. That's very cheap.
Yeah. And another thing, and then, sleeping on the whole national parks thing, this kind of falls in line with the whole, backpacking, but you don't really understand until you go to a national park and you like, whenever I go, like even when we went to Colorado, we found a good spot to carside camp. Now, to me, that feels like a private campsite to me, because every time we went back, my buddies went back, he's found a spot there. So we know a spot now where we land at the airport, we drive there, we carside camp. So it's like, it almost feels like I really feel like I own that property. Yeah. Which we do. We're taxpayers. We fund the parks. So it's like the national park. So it's like, it is yours, but you won't really feel like it's yours till you go there and you find a camp spot, or you find out where there's a cluster of camp spots, or where you find out where there's a trailhead, and you know what I'm saying? Yeah. And after you do that once, now you can rely on it. Now you can say, I'm going to take some friends here.
Yeah. And
but you have to go there once
to
like kind of put your understand it, find your spot.
And we're so scripted and structured in our life that we think that our only home is this square lot of property with a house on it, but we forget that we're animals on this plane. This whole world is our home. This is where we live. And you can make a home no matter where you are. It's just a state of mind. Yeah. Right. And so being able to do that in nature, being able to do that in a big city, that's, each one is its own creative art, and finding your comfort zone and finding, where you want to be in life.
I know my grandpa, so my brother, my dad, he has a big family, lots of brothers, stuff like that. And my grandpa had a spot up north across 61, like in Gladwin County, that he hunted, right? And he just went back to the same spot. He didn't go running around trying to find another spot. I know a lot of other families that same way, where they have a tradition for hunting season, or maybe just weekends that they go and camp on the same spot in state land. And You just go up to that same spot. So they always did. And eventually one of my uncles bought a place not too far from there because he loved it so much up there, And then now all my family's up there, got a bunch of acres and, but
deer camp.
It's a good example of like the state land that's available to everybody. Somebody took advantage of it, made tradition of camping there, using it, and then
and like you
now
said,
look,
it is our land.
Half my family lives up there.
Yeah, and you're allowed to go there whenever you want, and it's yours to play around on and explore on, and just because
especially these national parks, they're just something else. It's like the best thing any president ever did was setting that up.
Michigan,
shout out Roosevelt.
Michigan, not so much, but most of the other states, all the federal parks and federal land are free camping. They don't charge you. Most of them are.
You can be there for up to 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Without moving.
Yep. I didn't know that until I went on my trip. I thought I was going to be paying, $20 to like pitch my tent on a gravel plot, but then I get out of Michigan and I realize, oh my God, most of this stuff is free. That's sweet.
Yeah, Marla wants to do. She's pretty set on. I'm set on it too, but we're gonna get a little RV, like something small enough that she can drive it, but then also, one queen for us, and then. Table that turns to a bed and a bed above the cab.
I've been looking at Sprinter vans,
so we can have one or
house
two.
Vans,
So we have one or two couples with us, or we can have the kids. So, and then when that comes, it'll be more of, that kind of stuff just going out. And I like to be like slow, where they have 2 e-bikes on the back of it, be able to actually plan out like a whole month of bopping.
Yep.
She also loves the idea of being a passenger princess in an RV and going in the back and taking a nap and sitting at the table.
Driving sounds
Yeah, I think as long as you hold on to the excitement. I was thinking about recently, kind of close this out, was like, what is over the hill? And I think over the hill to me is like when I'm not excited about life.
Correct.
As long as I keep bringing in new information, new excitement, and new things are exciting me, and I'm like, I'm excited about building something or going to a new place or whatever. Like I'm going up. I'm going up the hill. You know what I'm saying? I'm not going down. It's like the over the hill is you lost that. You know what I'm saying? And you're just going to do the same pattern.
You're just slowing down to death at that point.
You're waiting for retirement, or you're not taking any more information. You're not doing anything fun. You're not pushing yourself. So I think that's the game, is holding on to excitement as long as you can. So
it's cliche as hell. It's the journey, not the destination. Yep. It's cliche, and you don't realize that until you get older, because you're so in a hurry to get somewhere. And then when you get there, on my motorcycle trip, I realized like every time on my way there, I stopped at Grand Canyon on the way there. And everything that I stopped at on the way to the Grand Canyon, I was taking pictures of. When I got to the Grand Canyon, I went up to it. I saw this huge canyon. I took a picture of it. And in my mind, I realized I was done. I collected my picture. I was ready to go back to the bike and just keep going. And when I realized that the pictures were actually ruining my experience, from that moment on, I stopped taking pictures. And I stopped taking pictures completely. I don't take pictures of myself. I don't take pictures of my motorcycle. I don't take pictures of anything that I do, because you're ruining the moment. Enjoy the moment while you're there. Don't whip out the fucking cell phone, you know what I mean, and post it on Snapchat, or whatever it is. Like, that is ruining the experience. Quit doing that, y'all.
Yeah, sometimes I think about that, because I'm not one to take a lot of pictures, and I'm like, afterwards, I'm like, gosh, I should have snapped a picture. That was actually pretty cool. You know what I'm saying? Like, sometimes I do appreciate that Marla will snap a picture, because I don't. Because sometimes it is fun to see. Like, my favorite pictures to hang in the house are like vacation photos. You know what I'm saying? Because like when you do hit those points where you feel bad or something, you walk by a picture of you and your family in Colombia or something. You know what I'm saying? Like, and you're like, man, I've lived. You know what I'm saying? And it feels good. Like, and you realize you're reminded that you have things to be thankful for.
I'm reminded by that.
Like, I don't want a random picture of us at Olin Mills, you know what I'm saying, with a weird background. But
or me sitting at work. Like, I'm just for an example. Yeah, a
picture of us, in front of a cruise ship because we were on this island, or in front of, or you know what I'm saying, in this other country, or something like that shows that, I got a great picture I love so much. It's me and my cousin and one of my good friends on top of Snowmass Mountain. Like just a beautiful, perfect picture. And it's like, you can't see that and be like, my life kind of sucks.
Right.
Does it?
To me, it's a reminder that you're in control. If you want to go on vacation, nobody else is going to take you on vacation, so to speak. You get what I'm saying? You're in control. If you want to change jobs or careers, if you want to become an artist, if you want to ride a motorcycle, you're the one that has to do that. Just to go in the opposite direction, if you're depressed and suicidal, no one's going to lift you out of that hole for you. You got to do that yourself. Oh, yeah. You got to take control of life, grab it by the reins, and do what you can. And that's your responsibility. Otherwise, you're already over the hill at 20 years old. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So similar kind of mindset thing. And that is depressing.
Yeah, that is.
Yeah. And that's how kind of I see when I see people that kind of seem like they struggle the most. It's that they don't have any kind of excitement.
They don't have that drive. And I'm grateful that I was raised in like a farm, hillbilly, country community because we had to make our own fun. There was no going to the pinball or the arcade. We didn't have that in Chelsea.
Right.
We had to go outside and find our own stuff. We were on four-wheelers, dirt bikes, snowmobiles. We were swimming in lakes, doing all that kind of stuff, just getting in trouble.
Yeah.
And I'm grateful that we were able to get in trouble in a small town because it was forgiving. You get in trouble in a big city, they take advantage of you, and they tell you you're a criminal and you're always going to be a criminal and you'll never not be a criminal, and that's what your life becomes.
Yeah, I think I hit the age of about 16, 17 and got arrested like 3 times. And I was just doing 16, 17-year-old stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I mean it's not like they prosecuted me or I got in like crazy trouble or they,
I got lucky.
Like, it's more like holding you in and then when your parents have to come get you. It's more like one of those things.
Yeah.
So it wasn't so bad. It would be terrible if they put it like on my permanent record. But they have all kinds of weird programs. That's the thing. Is that like, oh, we're gonna put you in the P this is whatever program.
Penal system.
Like they have these programs for teens. You know what I'm saying? So like, you get arrested.
Scared straight.
Yeah, something like that. It's just the way it's probably funded by some thing or whatever. But yeah.
But again, just being in a small town and me liking speed, when I turned 16, my first ticket I ever got was for 110 and a 55. My parents found out about it before I got home.
Yeah.
The cop was talking to a friend. The friend knew my parents and called my parents and told them what I had just gotten caught doing. Right. And I was heading to work in the morning and I was just speeding. I was doing 110 and a 55.
And really, that's enough for a kid. You don't need to be loading up with tickets or being stupid. Call their parents. That's enough.
Yeah.
But all right, man. We should probably put an end to this. I really appreciate you coming out, man. It was
you.
a great conversation, and we'll have to do it again, man.
Absolutely. Thank you.
People, Michigan people, interested Michigan people. It's the My People Podcast Show.